last guest writes the first question of the podcast. It's a mystery to both of us.
Okay. Last guest rates the first question of this podcast. All right. Question. When was the time you faced adversity and wanted to quit something, and what made you push through?
This is for you.
It's for me. What was the first time I faced it? Well, I think the first time... What a great question. I just got to settle with this, right? Because my whole life was adverse from the day back when I can remember, because of what my dad was doing to my mom.
To give you a little bit of time to think about where you want to go with this answer, I'll give you a little bit of additional on it.
Yeah.
The previous guest knows nothing about who the next guest is going to be.
No, but it just brings up, it's like first adversity. Like, when's the first, and I can go right to the military, right? But really my adversity started young. So it was really surviving. Like I think back when I was 5 or 6 years old, right? And things were happening that didn't make me feel safe, right? And there's an adversity in that. And I think, now knowing what I know now, I mean, I'm thankful for everything I went through, but it really was a setup. And, yeah.
If you had the ability, or if you haven't thought about it this way, looking back on it as a 5 or 6 year old, and this may even come off as a rhetorical question, were you figuring out ways to protect yourself even back then that you were aware of?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I know it was all building up a subconscious of survival and fear, right? There wasn't any awareness, but how I faced adversity as an adult is why I can say, well, now I realize how much that was for me. Right. So, I mean, the question, that's why it's like such a deep question for me, because of where I am now versus where I was then. And now I can put it, from a 30,000 foot view, put it more in context and actually be thankful and grateful for what I went through rather than being a victim of it. And I think that's, there's a gift in that, right? I mean, I wouldn't have done the things that I did. I wouldn't have been able to become a SEAL if I didn't have that adversity.
It often, I'll say, gets kind of overplayed, maybe overused, but there is something strong and powerful in the saying of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And even if at the moment you don't realize that not only are you getting through it, you are becoming stronger because of it.
Yeah, it builds you up that resiliency. And I look back, or I looked at the capacity and the things that I was able to do and persevere and have resiliency for, right? I wouldn't have been able to do that. And now just knowing, I think a lot of my brothers, the people that I served with, warriors, right, went through a lot of adversity to get there. And, and maybe those that didn't make it through didn't see that type of adversity, because there was nothing that anyone could tell me that I didn't think I already knew, right? When it comes to like this idea of like, you'll never make it type thing, right? And like, oh, you don't know me, right?
Place that bet and underestimate me.
Yeah. My detailer in the military, we have a detailer details the next assignment. I had to get released. I was an air traffic controller when I first started out. And so the detailer was like, this person didn't know me at all. He said, I don't know why I'm going to release you. The only reason I'm releasing you is because you're going to get out of the Navy if I don't do this, obviously. That's what I told him. But you're just going to be right back. And it's like, he just added more fuel to me. Like, you don't know who I am or what I've been through.
I've been fortunate enough now to interview quite a few who have gone through the SEAL pipeline. And the more interviews that I have with them, the more that the story is of resilience, and the number of them who it took multiple BUDS classes to get through, but the mental fortitude to keep going.
Right.
But kind of similar to your story, the ones who got completely dropped and had to go back to the fleet and had to earn their way back for another try, half their battle was fighting the resistance they were getting from their new command, or people who had the ability to detail them and looked at them and kind of go, yeah, whatever.
Right.
It's this, if it's not one negativity already of the fact that you got to deal with, you got dropped and you got to stay positive for the next try.
Right.
Now you're facing a completely different uphill battle of just the people around you.
I think it's important because, I mean, there's only so many spots, right, for one, and you really have to want it. You really, really have to want it. And nothing, right, like this idea of like nothing will stop me. Like they could have killed me. Like I started Hell Week with pneumonia. I knew I had pneumonia because everyone was coughing up green neon sputum and they were going to medical. And it's like, here I go. I see this neon green sputum. It's like, I have pneumonia. That's not going to stop me. I was 28 years old, so I was a bit older. And I couldn't go through first phase again. Like it was already, I mean, I was already hammered. There's no way my body could handle it. And I had 3 fractured ribs as well. So I was like, okay, what am I capable of? How strong are we? Like, am I going to believe that this pneumonia is going to stop me? Because the minute I believe that, the minute I have a feeling even towards that, then I won't make it. I will not make it if I have an inkling. And I say, this idea of feeling, right? I think a lot of the adversity that I went through put me in a place where I shut down feelings. I closed off. We have neurons in our heart math, and I don't know, how much you are aware of that. I'm just kind of stepping into that. But I know we have neurons in our heart, about 40,000, which I think our feelings come from. And we have 18 connections from our heart to our brain, 2 from the brain to the heart. It's the heart is constantly feeding information in the brain. The exchange, we have toward fields, so we have energy that goes beyond us, right? And we're constantly being bombarded. Our heart is reading that heart energy, right, from someone else. But I think because of what I dealt with, I learned how to really tune that out. Like, let's shut that down. And then I think there's a part of that, right, which this is my story, where I didn't feel sorry for myself. I'm not feeling the minute if I were to feel sorry for myself for 1 second, one little grain of that, like, and knowing everything else that I have to go through, then that's the end, right? That marks the end, because then there's validation over validation. Right now I'm getting sick. That's the easy way out, right? A DOR is hard. A medical is a lot easier.
You've already addressed or brought up the trauma that you experienced as a young boy. And you talked about how I'm not going to let myself feel a certain way, almost kind of that sense of I'm not going to let the feeling of quit sink in.
Right.
Were you almost completely non-feeling, though, across all emotions at that point in your life?
I think, it wasn't just that. I think the gift is that I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I can make it through, but I'm also not feeling love, right? In a sense of like, well, and I say for my journey, it's like what I've learned in this 30,000 foot view is that we get passed down a certain DNA from our parents, which contains multi-generational trauma. They've tested this in lab rats, 7 generations. So now I already have the DNA, right? I already have this passed down to me. And then something happens. I think when we're tiny little infants, we're in the crib and like we're looking up and it's like I cry. This blob comes in, feeds me. Now these become my gods. These become my protectors. They are my everything. And then somewhere along this journey of this, my protectors betrayed me. It wasn't their fault, right? They were doing the best they could with what they had. I absolutely love my parents. They did the best they can. And the idea of like, hey, Dad, Mom, forgive me for making you wrong. Thank you for giving me life because I'm here. Most importantly, I can have this now. I can talk through this, but really, please forgive me for making you wrong. for being human, doing the best you could because you had the DNA passed down to you and you were just a better version, right? But still something got passed down to me. And so now I take that on as my own shame and my shame. Why? Because I'm just pure love as a little, looking at 5 years old in their eyes. They're nothing but pure love. And what does pure love do? It just takes on everything. All the feelings, and when I say feelings, the energy, right? If we're passing information through our hearts, I'm open. I'm an open vessel. I'm taking all that energy on myself. And whose fault is it? Because if they are my protectors and they are my gods, how could it be their fault? And this is all subconscious, right? So now I have this ball of shame in me that I think is mine. It was my fault. Everything was on me. And now as an adult, as I move through, or as a child, as I'm progressing through, well, I'm almost protecting that shame. I'm actually validating the shame. I'm adding my own shame on top of the shame, making that my reality. And so, for having an experience like that, or actually knowing and having a bigger knowledge of where that shame came from, right? And then tying in feelings. Listen, I didn't want to feel, right? I didn't want to feel any of that. It was too much. So then I went into thinking, control, dominate, manipulate the world around me to bend to my will. And that's exhausting. That's survival. And that's really what a lot of us as humanity are really set up for.
To learn that, though, as a young boy, to where you're actually developing, I'll use the word manipulative skills to survive in your environment, but then not having anywhere near the emotional maturity to realize you can't do that to other people.
No.
But you immediately start doing that to the world.
That's right. Yeah. And now, well, here we go. I have this shame. I can't love myself because of this shame. I can't. So what do I have to do then? I have to transact with love. I got to manipulate, control, but like have an ego or whatever you want to mask, do a certain dance. Because I want you to love me. Why? Because I can't love myself. So then my energy level, or my like, if I often would say love, exchange it for energy, right? It's an exchange of energy. If I'm giving you my energy, I'm giving you my love. But my battery's at 50%, or now I'm saying my battery's good now, right? I'm a lot fuller. I don't know where I am on the scale, but who cares? It's just a freaking number. So, but I had a low battery, right? And that low battery, if I'm at 50%, just to keep it easy, how much am I able to give to myself? I can't give them what I don't have, right? So I'm just giving something, but I'm actually giving it. Why? Because I need it in return. I'm trying to fill my battery with your validation, with your like, oh, good job, guy. You're amazing. Like a ding, ding, ding. Okay, right? Or maybe I'm going to buy a new car. Like, how good do you feel after you have that shiny new car, right? But then I got to park way far away from the grocery carts because I'm worried about the first scratch, right? I'm boosting myself on external gratification or validation. Right, I'm trying to fill my battery, right, with something else, and I'm just transacting with it.
And I would imagine with every transaction, the new car, whatever it was, the joy, the fulfillment was fleeting.
Yeah,
and it was immediately, well, now what's next?
What's next? It's a chase. It's a setup for the chase. Now I'm chasing because I can't fill my own bucket. I'm looking externally to fill my bucket, and. I think now this realization of that, like, oh shoot, I was in survival mode. I was controlling, dominating, and manipulating for my own, protecting my own shame, or not even my shame. I'm protecting the shame that was passed down to me unknowingly, right? I'm exhausted. I'm swimming against the current of the river. I'm swimming. But you know what? I'm not going anywhere. And I'm exhausted. My battery's at 50. I'm transacting with energy, love. Right? Why? Because I can't love myself. And you are in a prison of your own making. We lock ourselves up in this. We truly do. And we're not even aware. Like I ask veterans and we just kind of went right. Like we went deep. This is a great question. Like, right? This is right. Good idea. So I ask veterans, like, listen, you went overseas to serve this nation for the freedoms that we have. Well, look, man, we are so lucky. We know because we've been overseas. We see what it's not like not to be free. But I ask you, are you free? Are you really free? And it kind of shaking, like, what do you mean, when am I free? Well, let me put it this way. When you're driving down the freeway, you're running late for an appointment, and people keep on cutting you off, right? What is your reaction? I'm road rage. I'm rage. So that person that you don't even know owns you. You're unconsciously reacting to someone outside of your car. You're not free. That has you. And that in itself, right? If we don't even realize we've locked ourselves in our own prison of our own making, and I keep on blaming other people, then I'll never get past it. But I have to bring myself to an awareness that I'm not free in the first place. And so, oh yeah, I guess I'm not free. Yeah, you're not free. Well, how about when you buy a new car? And again, how good that feels, right? But then again, I have to park it further away from the store, and I'm worried. And then the first scratch, or a month later, it never was your happiness, but you thought it was. So now I'm just like you're saying, it's just the chase. Here we go.
I eventually do want to get to what you're doing today with Next Peak, but I want to paint the full picture. Obviously, you've already pointed out there's trauma in your life early on as a child. But where is hometown? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California. My dad, Vietnam veteran, Navy, submariner, did some river work out there. He got out after 4 years, was a diver, became LAPD, did that for 25 years. And I bounced back and forth. So my parents got a divorce when I was 6 or 7. And I bounced back and forth between my mom and my dad. My mom, I think she would move every 6 months to a year, right? Which is part of my journey. I was an only child named Guy, right? Now it's like, it's already awkward, right? Who names their kid Guy? Like, I appreciate it now, but not when you're a little boy. Moving around, no brothers, sisters, right? And there was a lot of adversity in that as well. There was a lot of just developed a friendship. Now I got to leave again. So I didn't really have a community. What
was the longest point that you stayed in any one place?
My mom was going to move to, I think, the beach or something, and after my freshman year of high school, I was like, I'm done. I'm going to move in with Dad, right? So I moved in with my dad, and I was there for 2 years. So I lasted 2 years there, and then I did my senior year of high school in Lake Tahoe. So I was all over the place.
Not a horrible place to do high school.
Southern California and then Lake Tahoe. So I learned how to ski, and I got attached to the mountains for sure up there. And then pretty much joined the Navy really soon after graduating high school.
For you outside the home, did you have interest? Did you play sports? Were you good in school academically?
Yeah. I mean, no, I didn't really apply myself. I would get the assignments done. I think I had a 3.38 G. I don't know. I was proud. It was a B. It was B. It was like it's great, but I didn't have an aspiration to go to college. I wasn't really, didn't even apply to any colleges. I went to a junior college for architect design. And then my dad was like constantly badgering me, join the Navy, join the Navy, join the Navy. I'm like, no, I'm not joining the Navy. No, like just the rebellious, right? You want to be right or you want to be happy. It's like, and so I think the day he stopped badgering me about it, I took myself to the recruiter office. It's like I have authority or I have sovereignty. Like I'll make the choice. And he was very proud. My dad and I have a really good adult relationship for sure. He's been my number one supporter in all this. So.
That's cool that you were able to get to that point after all of that. Was there the desire to want to serve, but it was always that thing of your first instinct was to butt heads and say, I'm not going to do what you want me to do?
Yeah, I think that was it. I didn't really think, I didn't have service on the mind. There wasn't that component. I think that, I think when you have that type of adversity, and maybe subconsciously, it's like we realize, wait, if my own home is a dangerous place, then the whole world is dangerous. So maybe there's this warrior archetype that comes out of that, and we become a warrior to protect others with that, again, that subconscious, like, oh, I have to be the protector.
I would imagine too, though, that there's a need and a desire to almost challenge yourself to the most extreme and make sure in a weird way that to yourself, the world can't break me and I can handle any adversity that comes my way.
Yeah. I don't think that's a conscious thing, but I think there is definitely a component of that we kind of get forged into that for sure. And I think the more, again, my belief is the more adversity you have, right? I think the stronger, the more, I think there's a DNA component of it too. I don't want to like discourage, my oldest wants to go be a SEAL, right? And so I don't want to discourage him. I think he's got a lot of me in him, right? He has that warrior, right? So I think that there's a component of that. And he has adversity, but it's not the adversity that I went through, right? And there was, a bit of, okay, he had my DNA, right? And he did go through a lot. And I mean, our family has been through a lot in all this. So there is adversity, but just, we don't have to always define adversity as something that bad that happens to us as well, right? And again, this is my story, right? I get to tell my story in this and the adversity I have. And to be able to tell in a way is like, listen, I'm complete. As you can tell, I'm complete with the source of my trauma. Like the beginning ball of shame, it's like, I believe when I collapsed that shame that wasn't mine in the first place, then everything, all the other shames that I thought I had collapsed down with it. I had to get complete with the source of that. And I'll give a plug to Save a Warrior. I don't know if you've heard of it. They do a lot of first responder work and veteran work. But Jake Clark put together this amazing program. It's 3 days long, and the light bulb went off for me in there. And I started doing the work after. I started meditating. And a lot of the languaging I use is straight from their camp. And it's not like this is new knowledge. Look, all the knowledge is out there. We just need to put it together in a formula and package it together where maybe just one person, the light bulb goes off. You realize, wait a minute. I don't want to survive anymore. I don't want to swim against that current of the river that I was talking about. I'm swimming 50% battery, exhausted. And if I'm thinking thought, control, dominate, manipulate, I'm not safe. The amount of glucose and the amount of energy that takes, and my adrenal glands, because I'm hypervigilant, like I'll never be above 50%. So I'm doing the best I can with the energy I have, right? And the monster energy. I mean, I was a junkie. I was an adrenaline junkie. I was an addict. And I think, it's like, I wish that, and I'll throw this out on this podcast, someone take it on. Let's come up with a 12-step program that's about emotional sobriety, because it's not about the drink. It's about what I'm numbing myself with. And in my opinion, our whole the humanity right now is drunk. Like we're so polarized, right? And we're so, I'm right, you're wrong. Okay. And then the opposite side of the coin is no better. And we're so divided in it. It's all about drama. I don't watch the news anymore because I'm not an addict to the drama, because they want you to be caught in fear. If I'm caught in fear, then it gives me an internal drug that I'm feeding off of. Why? Because I'm an addict. I'm not emotionally sober.
To give up control when you're talking about the news, and the fact that no matter who you talk to, it's clearly obvious. It's just a machine. It's a money-making machine that they use all of us as their customers, and we get so wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
It's almost our identity.
It is. Yeah. Because, and again, you're in a prison of your own making. It's not it's not the system's fault. We're buying into the system because we're stuck. We're in a prison of our own making. We're not free. And I'm not saying you can't have anything. I'm not thinking, I have nice things. It's okay to have nice things. I mean, whatever, it's like, but what's my relationship to it? Is it a tool? Or am I actually numbing myself? Am I getting some kind of oxytocin or some kind of internal drug off that thing? And I'm listen, this is a journey, right? This is a journey. I'm like, I get caught, right? It's like, I like cars, right? Whatever, like, and I like to buy brand new skis every once in a while. I don't want to buy new used ones. like I want my, so I spend money, I get caught, and then it's okay, right? What's my relationship to it, right? And I have to do the work every single day to stay free. Right? Freedom isn't, you have to work for it. Look, we went overseas and did extraordinary things to give other people their freedom and to protect and continue to protect ours. It took a lot of work. Well, to get internal freedom, one, you have to be aware, and be honest with if I'm really honest with myself, I'm not free. Okay. But that takes a lot. That's a big stretch. That's a big stretch to be honest with yourself and say, and I had to get to that honesty. I'd be like, okay, I am not free. And I didn't realize it. When I started off in Save a Warrior, started meditating, I didn't realize it then. Again, I was caught in the illusion. I was of it. And this is not about religion, but Yeshua, Jesus, right? Ben Joseph would say you're either of the world or you're in the world. I was of it. I didn't know what that meant. Like of it or in it. What does that really mean? It means it had me. And if it had me, and I was unconsciously reacting to it constantly, I was feeding it, right? And it owned me. And being in it is like, wait, I'm aware. Oh, I was caught in the matrix. Call it whatever you want to call it. But I was caught. I was of it. I was feeding it all the energy that I didn't have to try to get it in return. That's being of it versus, oh, I'm in it. I realize, well, yeah, I'm not free. Now, right, I start consciously elevating myself. And that's really like, I look at Next Peak, like kind of into that. It's like our mission at Next Peak is to empowerment. To empower veterans and their families. And we work with first responders too. I need to weave that into the mission statement eventually because it's important. I was a first responder as well. To empower veterans and their families to return to wholeness, who you really are. And we do it through community and connection. I loved the community and the brotherhood I had. And I will forever cherish those moments I had. But the bonds I had with my brothers were more formulated in trauma. And when you have these trauma bonds, and I'm like, it's like, hey, we're connected. We can do amazing things together. But you know what I'm not going to do? Is I'm not going to show any vulnerability or feelings. Suffer in silence. And even going to Hell Week is a trauma bond. Because if you don't lift your boat, the part of your boat, right? And you're showing weakness day after day, you're not going to, it's not that listen, we will get you out of our boat. We will do anything to it's not, there's no team in that, right? Initially.
It's almost the instructors are the least of your problems at this point.
Yeah. It's your own, but we will eat each other alive to survive. There's no empowerment in that, right? And yeah, it's all for a reason, okay? But there becomes I believe when you do survive that, right? The outcome of that is, man, we are bonded. But at the same time, I will die for you, but I'm not going to tell you any of my shame. I will never be able to go there. Why? Because I don't even know it's there, for one, right? And I got stuck, and so did you, and we're a good company. And we were stuck, and it's okay. We leveraged our stuckness to do so many great things. And I'm so proud of what I was able to do, right? With the men I served with. Like, oh my gosh. And I didn't even go to the very tip, right? I just, white side SEALs, West Coast. And an enlisted officer. So I was a Mustang officer. And I'm very proud of what I got to do, right? And it's not really now part of my story. I don't even really go into it. But I do say, it's like, listen, if we have this much strength, like by this, right? Just think what an authentic connection, right? We're here. And that love I have, right? The understanding that we have for each other. That's empowerment. And veteran suicide, listen, the latest one that we had in the community was Bobby Ramirez. And I served with Bobby at SEAL Team 5. We were enlisted together, and he went on to become an officer like myself, right? But he ended up being a CO of one of the SEAL teams. And that's like, wow, as a SEAL officer, that's big. Bobby took his own life. And I talked to guys that knew Bobby, after. It's like, well, look, and all of them said, two of them said, hey, it seemed like he was good old Bobby. He had no indication. No, he's not going to show you. He's the CO of a SEAL team. Who does he go to when he's suffering inside? He doesn't have any authentic, loving connections. He thinks he's alone. Me too. I almost took my own life in it because everyone's got a mask and everyone seems good. All my brothers seem like, man, they got it figured out. None of us were showing our cards. We learned to do that in the SEAL teams to protect ourselves, because my identity was being a SEAL. I worked my ass off to get there. It was my everything. And I wasn't going to let feelings get in the way. And I think there's a component of going overseas. Listen, if I feel now, I don't know if today I can do the same thing, right? But again, I think there's a need for it too. And if we're going to send our men and women overseas in that capacity to be able to do those type of things, and I hope some politician listens to this and says, yeah, this is absolutely right. If we're going to send our men and women to do these things, to become really just robots without feeling, to protect the freedoms of which we aren't even taking advantage here, really, truly, because we're not free, right? That if we're going to send them in that capacity, that we mend them when they come back. Let's give them their lives back. And really, that's where I see us as Nexi is a component, a part. Listen, I don't have it all figured out. I don't. I hope that there's a million nonprofits that start empowering people instead of handing stuff out, because it's not the handout that's going to help us. It's not. I need empowerment. I need authentic, loving connections, a community, a new tribe where I can be heard and I can be safe. Finally, a safe house. Because if my own house was not safe when I was a little boy, and the whole world isn't safe, where am I actually going to heal from this trauma? The shame that wasn't mine. I got to let it out. But in order to get there, I have to be safe. And that's like, again, that's what warriors will come back for each other like no other. When I say warrior, I see first responders in that same category. A warrior archetype, protect the world. I even go say nurses, emergency nurses, right? And ER doctors, protectors. service-oriented people. And if we give those people, right, if we unlock their full potential, get them back to their hearts, now we're servant leaders. We're leaders. We're warriors that lead from the heart and set the example what it means to be a true protector of those around us and to make people feel safe no matter what.
I do want to take you back to deciding to join the Navy.
Yeah.
Your father was in the Navy. Did you consider any of the other branches?
No, I think, it was, maybe in spite. It's like, oh, I'll join the Air Force. Yeah. Show you, Dad. No, I looked up to my dad. I think there was a component. We all, look up to our parents, right? No matter what happens.
You've already said that your final iteration was as a SEAL, but you were an air traffic controller for a while.
Yeah.
Going in, was your desire the SEAL teams?
No, I had didn't really cross my path. There was a couple guys, air traffic controllers that went through BUD/S. And I remember, them coming back. I'm like, oh, that guy must be a stud, right? And I was an adrenaline junkie. Like I was an addict of adrenaline. I didn't do any drugs growing up, but man, I was like, oh, give me more adrenaline, right? I was on the BMX bike, a motorcycle, whatever, I was a junkie. So, but I don't know. There was no thought of it. I remember seeing those guys and thinking, and I think it crossed my mind once, right? But it wasn't until I was at my final duty station as an air traffic controller, and one of the gals that worked there, her husband was a SEAL, and I remember meeting him for the first time, and he ended up becoming a master chief. I'll just keep his name out of it, but I was running my own for-profit business to take veterans out on getaways, like mountain biking or camping or whatever.
And this is in addition to being an active duty Navy.
Active Navy, yeah. So I was already kind of formulated a plan to get out. So, but I was doing a pilot trip and I invited them on it, and him and I were sitting around the campfire drinking a beer, and he said, "You know what? You'd make a good SEAL." And I was like, "Phew." That was it. Like right when he said that. And the internet was just basically it was 98. So we had the internet, but it wasn't as robust as it is now, right? So I had to look it up, and there's the test and I could take a test and whatever. And 2 months later, like 3 months later, I was in BUD/S. It was rapid fire, right?
How many years in are you at this point?
8. Yeah, I was already in E6 too, which in the SEAL community coming in to BUD/S as an E6, it was a bit of a challenge. I mean, that's the hard, in my opinion, that as an LPO of E6 or an LPO of a platoon, it's herding cats. Like it's the toughest job, right? Let alone a class of 250 people, right? That'll eventually be weeded down to 26. And every time someone was not in line with what the instructors wanted, right? Who got to take them to the surf zone? Me, right? So I was never dry. I was always wet and sandy, just miserable. I mean, my legs, I had bloody thighs. I had my thighs were rubbing together when I wasn't quite in as good a shape as I should have been. So my thighs were rubbing together. So I was losing skin in the inner thigh, which is a bit painful when there's salts and everything else. So
heading into it, did you feel that you had any deficiencies going in? Were you mentioned being an adrenaline junkie. Had you been able to do all of that stuff, the mountain biking, the motorcycles, and avoid any significant injuries that you were carrying into that?
No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't have any major injury. I just wasn't in the best shape. We didn't have obviously August or late August, September, I'm making a decision to go to BUD/S based on someone saying I'd be a good SEAL. Like okay, but I saw something in him, right? And I was like, okay, that's what I want. I want to be you. Right, type thing. So I wasn't in the best of shape. I was an endurance athlete, which probably served me well. Obviously, it's an endurance sport.
Your body is built for more energy, more focus, more strength. But if you're feeling sluggish, unmotivated, or mentally drained, it's time to make a change. At Human Performance TRT, science meets convenience. Their hormone replacement therapy, weight loss programs, and mental health solutions are all designed to help you feel and perform at your best without ever leaving home. They offer medical-grade hormone optimization, weight loss support with personalized health coaching, and ketamine therapy for depression, anxiety, and trauma, all guided by qualified mental health professionals. HPTRT is veteran and first responder owned, and they make it simple to optimize your health. There's no locked in contracts. And if you're already on a hormone program, switching is easy. There's no extra test if your blood work is under 6 months old. Ready to take back your edge? Go to hptrt.com and use the promo code TDP for 30% off. That's hptrt.com and use the promo code TDP for 30% off your entire program. Stop waiting. Your peak performance starts now.
But no, if I was in a little bit better shape and I'm vertically challenged, so that's why fractured ribs was on the dirty name. It's one of the obstacles that you have to kind of leap on these and throw your, hopefully your stomach lands on this thing. And I couldn't get over it. And I think it was beginning PT before we even classed up, but in-doc is what they called it back then. And I struggled getting over it. And I had fractured ribs then. That's when I fractured the ribs, is the beginning of first phase or in-doc. So
you went through all of it, Hell Week, basically the entire program with broken ribs? Did you never get a medical role?
So I got, after Hell Week, I was wrecked, right? We had a winter class, very cold. So my body was wrecked. It took me 2 weeks to recover. So the week, you get a week off and go right back at it. And I had already failed the O course once. So then I failed it again. Obviously, after Hell Week, I didn't have the strength. Somehow I made it over the dirty name, right? But I didn't have the actual grip strength. I didn't have any strength to get on the Slide for Life. You were doing a upside down at the time in first phase. So then I was up for a performance role, which you don't really want a performance role, right? And so I remember they asked me 3 times, like, is there anything you want to tell this board? I'm like, and again, the whole thing is like, no, I'm going to suffer in silence. What is this going to change? And there was something inside me that said, no, you need to tell them, like, listen, I fractured ribs before Hell Week. And, they're still bothering me to this day. Right. And they were like, kind of like, bullshit, you didn't fracture ribs. And so they sent me to medical and I ended up having 3 distinct like fractures in like 7, 8, and 9 my ribs. And so I think there was a bit of like, oh, okay, this guy's, he's not, this is post Hell Week, obviously. There's a change, right? When you get your brown t-shirt, there's a definite change. So I think there was a mark in that for people, for the instructors or my, the people that I wanted to be, where this guy's not going to quit. Like,
were you able to get through the remainder of it?
Yeah.
No issues?
I got rolled. I got rolled post Hell Week. Rolled into the next class and
because of your ribs?
Yeah. So I had to wait a class because it was a medical role essentially, right?
Right.
So I had to wait a class. So got class back up, which is good. I needed that recovery time there, to go into the next phase, and I ended up finishing with that class. So yeah.
How was your swimming?
I grew up in the water. I surfed, right? I'm very comfortable in the water. I couldn't navigate, so I had to, so there's a bit of a dance where I couldn't swim straight. So if anyone was tied to me, I was like, listen, I'm gonna let you'll do way better than me. I cannot do this in the water for some reason. I'm all over the place. So I think but I can keep a pace, right? The water never bothered me.
Being a West Coast kid, was a West Coast team your priority, or did it matter if you were East Coast or West Coast?
I wanted to be on the West Coast. Yeah, I just like the weather here. I don't know if I'll ever move to the East Coast. But yeah.
So you didn't go into the Navy intending or wanting to be a SEAL.
Mm-mm.
You learned about it later on and then said, okay, I want to go do this. In a weird way, in your headspace of what you thought you were going to go do and why you wanted to go be a SEAL, once you got assigned to a team and you were doing it, was it what you thought it was?
No, because I think you get on the other end of it, right? And you're just like, oh, this is not that big of a deal. But at the same time, when I really go deep on that, feeling, it's like there's again, that goes back to that bond that we did have. Like maybe it wasn't this, but that I've never experienced. I think what I was chasing to more than anything was that family bond that I didn't have growing up. And what we'll do for each other, right? With what we have.
You were 8 years in prior to putting in your packet to go. Had you not made it or been selected, to even go to buds, would you have gotten out, or do you think you were planning to stay in for a quote unquote career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. I probably would have, I would imagine I would have got out, because that was where I was before that. And if that didn't work out, being a SEAL didn't work out, then, I think you have to, I would have to put in another 3 years. But I just never felt like air traffic controller wasn't my thing. I did it and I was somewhat good at it, but only when I was empowered, right? I remember my first duty station, I was really good at it. There was a lot of really good people. And my second one, I was on the ship. The chief that was in charge was very disempowering. It really triggered. I had a lot of triggers from him. He was my dad on steroids, right? It's like now I was like, oh my god, I
relate to this guy.
Yeah. But I was like,
I didn't mean it in any way positive.
Yeah. I was like, right. And so I couldn't even talk on the mic. Like, I was so traumatized by him, so it just goes, yeah. So I probably would have had to do the job air traffic controller, or I don't know, they may have even sent me to some kind of weird security detail, which could have changed my whole trajectory as well. We just never know, right? There was these forks in the road, and we go, and I think that, I just think this feels like right time to bring this up. It's like when we're born and we die, and we have this line right between, and that's like our true north. It's our calling, it's our purpose. And at the same time, I think there's some birth in that. I think there's not like one thing, right? I think that we can be, close to that line, and do a very valiant, whatever it is that you're meant to do, right? A calling, a purpose, right? And I think the more we control, dominate, manipulate, right? Play God, so to speak, right? Through ego. When we edge God out and we end up becoming our own gods, right? Is that we go further and further away from who we really are. And then I think that's like that's that imprisonment, right? And now I'm trying to maintain this, right? And there's a cost, but when I finally stop swimming against the current of the river, and I finally surrender and say, oh, like there's this raft this very shiny raft is like, oh, right. And I hop in the raft and I start floating down the river. But I have a paddle, thankfully, because I'll avoid the obstacles, right? At least now I'm going somewhere, right? I'm actually making my way back to my north, my true calling or my purpose. I even forgot the question now.
I was just talking about, at that time, 8 years in, did you already have a career plan? You mentioned that you're already running a side business. Yeah. So in my mind, I was already thinking, well, okay, I'll put my papers in. If they don't give me the opportunity, then I'm done and I'll go move on. That's where I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that would probably been, but again, it's like, there's so many things. I think where I got down that trapped that rabbit hole, there's so many things that can come up, right? And there's so many forks in the road. And being where I was pretty stuck. I think everything happens for a reason. And as we step into every scene, I jokingly say, it's like in my universe, right? That everything's conscious. Well, everything they're about to prove is everything's consciousness, right? And then we're conscious viewing itself, right? Well, if I really get behind that and start to believe that is my truth, it's like, then, well, you know what? This is my movie. This conscious experience is mine and yours is yours, right? And as I go through this conscious journey, right? I just totally lost myself right there. And that's okay.
It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And we'll eventually get back to where you're going, probably.
Yeah.
I think what comes to my mind when you're talking about you're on your own journey, every one of us, like you mentioned before, through our lives, we experience adversity.
Yeah.
And the adversity is our own in the sense of the pressures that we put on ourselves and the pressures that are being put on us.
Yeah.
And so, yes, every one of us, you go through SEAL training with, like you said, you start with 250 other guys, but every one of them is on their own individual journey.
They're on their own journey.
Doing it shoulder to shoulder with somebody else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We all have, we have a common thread, but it's our own story, right? It's our own consciousness. And it's just bringing myself to an awareness of that, right? I have to be aware of that. And really, like I say, as we start to climb our peak, or as we start to return back to our wholeness, I have to realize that every single person's journey is unique to them. And if I realize that you're having a conscious experience, I'm having, they're overlapping, right? And if we're going to do this, if we're going to do this authentically, if we're going to do this connected, then instead of me pushing on your head and kicking you down to get up a little bit further, no, I'm reaching my hand out, right? And that's what warriors do, right? Like, we'll come back for each other like no other, right? And that's authentic, loving connection. That's understanding, like, you're on your journey, I'm on mine, right? And we've crossed paths. And I can probably, a lot of our journey may be similar. We may have gone through similar things along our journeys, but what can we do to learn? Like, let me hear your story.
Right.
Let me genuinely hear your story. But in order for you to tell your story with all your heart, you have to be safe.
The opportunity to go from enlisted to officer, was that something you went looking for, or it just kind of fell in your lap? How'd you learn about it, and what was that process like?
Yeah. So I owe that to my spouse. She, her father was a Marine officer, right? And I think she saw something in me, basically kind of really nudged, right? There's certain times in your life where it's like, oh, okay, that was a really good nudge. And I owe that to my spouse at the time. And then I was able to, like, okay, right, I can do this, right? And so I put a package in. The Seaman Admiral it was going through a phase and change, and the new Seaman Admiral program allowed for NSW enlisted to apply and get a actually specific NSW billet. So that came up. I told her, and she's like this is you should do this. And I'm like, and she empowered me, right? To do it. And I just never looked back. And again, when I set my mind to something, and I just remember being super nervous, like 33 years old, I went to USD, paid for by the government. I mean, such a blessing, right? What a gift. But thinking, man, I haven't sat in a classroom for 15 years. And what I learned is if I show up, if I sit in front, so I'm not distracted by the shit, the college girls, what I mean? Just sit in the front and just look at the teacher and apply myself a little bit, do the homework. Like, it was so easy. Like, I got A's, like it was effortless. Just had, I had and I think I had a little more wisdom, right? An 18-year-old doesn't have that discipline, right? And nor should they. They're 18. Like, they should be having a little bit of fun. I was already engaged, and my life was different, right?
If I'm following the calendar correctly, were you in that program on 9/11?
Yes. So right. Yeah. Right. 9/11 had already happened. I was on my second platoon as a SEAL, and we were actually training. And then we end up going to not being able to go to Afghanistan at the time. And we went to, our deployment was to Okinawa. So I did most of that deployment to Okinawa, and then went from there, left that platoon and went to school for, I forget, whatever school they required, the preschool for going to college.
Coming out of that program and now putting on bars, what was that like for you? How was that transition for you, going from being an enlisted, already an LPO though, so you're already in a significant form of leadership, but now actually being an officer?
Yeah, I think I think Mustang officers can go one of two ways. You can still think you're one of the boys, or you can leverage the experience of being enlisted and having an understanding of what the enlisted guy needs and really serve them, right? As a servant leader, really serve them, right? I always say, like, how I was a leader was like, you don't work for me, I work for you. and that's kind of, I think that's opposite, but it's not, right? Like, no, the work I do is to make sure you're safe, that you have the tools and everything you need to get the job done. And it's not about me. It's not about, so I think you can, again, if I'm being one of the boys, I mean, you have to, that's probably the hardest thing for a Mustang to do is kind of wash that enlisted, because there's a certain culture and there's certain things that happen, and you're not one of the boys anymore. You gotta, you're holding the position of responsibility, which holds a burden.
And you're 12 years in at this point?
Yeah. 12 or 13. Yep.
So you've got a lot of water under the bridge, just as far as service and being in that community to now take it to the next level. But like you said, there's that distinct line where it's like, you got to leave a little bit of the past behind you, because you're no longer one of the boys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you have to untether from that. That's sometimes it's hard for some Mustang officers. That's tough for. So I think there's a very distinct, like, what are you going to choose here? And I had good mentors, good prior enlisted, guys that really got on, so I was lucky. I was fortunate to be able to be pointed in that direction. It's like, hey, you're not going to be one of the guys. Okay, I get that.
Able to go through the program, come back as an officer, and still stay West Coast, or did that alter anything?
No, they at that time with the new program, they were like, listen, you've been away for 3 years. So before, you would just go right in, you would enlist, or you get Seaman Admiral, you automatically just put 01 on, and then work in a couple of platoons. Well, you had to go to the East Coast, but I had 3 years of separation, and so I don't think I actually on the West Coast even worked with anyone that I had worked with enlisted.
That 3 years away, so to speak, did it feel weird to come back into the space? Did it kind of feel like you were detached from it?
It was tough. Yeah, because it was tough. I mean, it's a quick moving train.
That's an understatement.
It's a quick moving train, and tactics change. I remember my first platoon I was the let's see. Yeah, I was a troop ops person on my first deployment, and then I was able to step into a platoon. Allowed me to have 2 deployments. And so my first one, because I had all the skills, right? But I couldn't apply those to that quick moving train. It was so much different, right? There was nuances that I was missing, and so I had a lot of old bad habits, right? So it's and again, if you and that's just 3 years of stepping away. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle. Yeah.
That you say that you had old bad habits, but I could imagine.
I mean, they were good habits at the time.
Yeah. You step away for 3 years, you step back in, try to get into a stick, and all of a sudden, like, hey, Grandpa, we stopped doing that 3 years ago.
Yeah, right. It's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think there was a bit of struggle in that for me, but again, it's like, I think with that resiliency, it's like, okay, how do I need to change this on the fly? I mean, I need to learn quick, because they're not going to slow the train down for you.
No,
you got to learn quick. You got to be a quick learner. And I think, again, that's a superpower, right, that I now have. I was like, oh, okay, I can learn quickly. If I have good, if I feel safe, I feel empowered, right? And I think we did have a lot of empowerment for each other, right? We didn't do the things we did if we weren't empowering each other.
Right.
I just think my point is now, it's like, authentically, if I'm not transacting with it, right? That wave of the futures, how can we come back for each other in a different way?
Making it to the officer rank, did that change any part of your, I'll call it, aspirations or career, in the sense of, all right, now I've made it to this rank, I want to try to achieve X? Or did you still have an arbitrary exit date? Like, regardless where I'm at, this is kind of already, I know I'm getting out.
It was called Seaman Admiral. I had no aspirations for Admiral.
Yeah.
And plus I was like Seaman right to Ensign, right? Which is the worst rank. No, I enjoyed being a working officer. I think that obviously the higher you go, it's, I think we end our working career really at troop commander, which is an 04. And it would have been nice to have done that. But the writing was on the wall. I was 24 years in. I wasn't seeing my kids. I wasn't home at all. I mean, it's a very busy work schedule, right? That you're not home. And it's like I was living two different lives.
That's the component. And I mentioned to you in recent conversations, it's becoming more apparent, the demands of these careers that never seems to get highlighted, the impact on the families of constant deployments.
Yeah.
And the fact I had Jake Rodemaker, who produced the movie Brothers at War and then just recently Brothers After War. And it was a documentary, and he followed his brothers who had been deployed in Iraq. But the thing that stood out to me was the interview with his brother, and his brother says, it takes me 6 months to come back from a deployment and get back into the normal swing of things and be dad again. And guess what? I'm immediately heading into a workup to redeploy at that point.
Yeah.
We never talk about the demands on the family
to
do these careers.
And that's really like for us as a nonprofit, Next Peak, it's like, it's really not just the veteran. It's got to be the family system, right? We need to bring the women in our lives that have been standing by our sides, right? That don't get any appreciation, really. And we're not, even me, I didn't do a good job of really appreciating what that meant, right? For the other side. And I was self-absorbed.
Or all the experiences that you missed out on with your kids that you can never get back.
Yeah.
That I don't think, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I believe that there's a big portion of society who sees what veterans and first responders do, but they never stop and think about the little things.
That's right.
The birthday parties, the soccer games, whatever it is.
Right.
So, hey, good on you for serving the country, but wait, you completely missed out on 5 years of your kid's life.
It's a level of sacrifice that goes beyond the veteran. And I think it's like, I'm so glad you bring this up. It's a level of sacrifice that goes way beyond the veteran. The whole family sacrifices. And we don't talk about that. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's so true, right? There's a level of sacrifice that goes, and even our, the worry on our parents and this, that, and the other, right? So it's way more, right, than the veteran itself. And I think listen, I can do all this work to help a veteran get to a certain, or even a first responder get to a certain place. But if the wife is still very stuck, right, then he's going right back into the same environment. But really, if we can get someone back to their heart center in this, or if I can get them right back to center as much as possible who they really are, right, then they are being protectors of women, in my opinion, just want to be safe and they want to be loved. That's it. But I didn't have the capacity to make even her feel safe, right? Here I'm the protector and the guardian, doing all these things, right? But for where I was stuck, right, I couldn't be that protector. And there's an aspect of who I am that she needs to see, right, to heal, right? We generally marry very alpha women, warriors, right? They'll get after it, right? But that's really when you're with another alpha in the same house, that's very difficult. Now, I think this time, when you are there at the house, right, and she's running the house, is like, right? So she's been running it because you're gone all the time. And yet I come in and think that I'm the patriarch. I run that. No. But then there's that tension, right? It's all, again, maybe just maybe there's a trauma bond in that.
It's funny because you put it a great way in that we spend 20 or 30 years protecting the world. But how many of us, and I'll use the loose terminology, how many of us destroy our own homes? That's right. While we're out saving the world.
Yeah. Right. That's again, the sacrifice, like our divorce rate is 75, 80%.
Coming to your transition, did you have a plan getting out of the Navy?
Well, it did actually. I was where I wanted to go is I wanted to still serve, and I thought, well, what can I do to still serve, right? And so I ended up becoming a first responder. Actually, my plan was I put myself through a college academy here locally at Palomar.
What made you choose fire over law enforcement?
It's a good question. And law enforcement never really popped for me. I don't know why. I think there's always been, my wife would word it to the boys like, Daddy's going over to help people, right? That's what we'd always say, that he's going to help. And yeah, we are going over to help. My act of service, I felt more like in line with really helping people, right? Maybe that's empowerment side was in me, but I just, more of not instead of a warrior, more of a guardian energy that I had. I had to be the guardian, but yet I went through a warrior path, right, to get there.
I want to move into I'll call it your reset point. You got to your lowest point and tried to take your life.
Yeah.
When did that happen? And can you walk me through it?
Yeah. So as a first responder, so I get, picked up by Glendale, and the first part of that job, I mean, really busy. I went through an academy again. College academy didn't matter. I don't even know why I waste my time. That's okay.
Because they wouldn't have put you through an academy probably.
Well, no,
they made you go through.
I had to go through an academy with them, right? So it's like yeah. So that but there were certain jobs that you had, if you had an academy, you didn't have to go through it, type thing. So, but anyway, you don't know that when you're stepping in it. So, academy, probation. I got picked up from paramedic school, so they were changing their model. So that was another year, and then as a probationary paramedic, I was at a busy house, right? Running call after call after call. So the first 4 years, like this was great. And then I got selected to go to the hazardous material house. It was a little bit slower house, which was great. I was older. I mean, when you get up 3 or 4 times after midnight, it's like, and you're law enforcement. So you guys are just on call. You're driving around all night, right? And you're like, what are you complaining about? You at least get to sleep. It's like, it's actually, I'd rather just be up, right, than be woke up. So yeah, so I traveled through that. And what was where were we in the question?
I would just I'll use the word the path.
The path.
But ultimately you getting to your rock bottom.
Yeah. So yeah, I was at a slow house. Thank you for bringing me back. As you see, I go on tangents and I just float off. So you can edit it all out.
That's okay.
But yeah, so I went to a slow house, and I always tell people, it's like, okay, the wheels start getting a little bit loose. I started experiencing for the first time anxiousness. I was a little bit anxious. Like, what am I anxious? Like, I go on pediatric calls, and I never really felt myself as I always struggled with the whole paramedic thing for some reason. And I think that when we're not in alignment with what we're supposed to do, there's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of like I'm going to push. So I pushed I forced myself through paramedic school, and then, probation or internship and all that stuff. So I got to the other end of being a paramedic, but it really there was a lot of resistance. But anyway, so pediatric calls were a little tough for me for some reason. I had kids, right? So that's probably why. I was seeing my own kids. And so right along that same time, about the 5th year, a really good friend of mine that I grew up with in the SEAL teams, we went to BUDS together, went through SQT, SEAL qualification and training, went to the same team together. We had a bond. And this guy was the most mentally tough human I've ever met in my life. So there's SEALs in this guy, right? He ended up going to SEAL Team 6, and I won't say his name, but like a warrior of all warriors, right? And he took his own life. And that was the first SEAL that, the first time I was really impacted. Like I was, but at the same time, I was so resentful for him. How could you? I mean, and angry. I was so angry. I didn't have no compassion, nothing, right? And so that sent me into almost like a state of depression, right? So now I'm anxious, I'm depressed. I'm not even really recognizing it, right? And then I was on a call. It was a 14-year-old boy. My oldest boy was the same age. He was hit by a drunk driver at about 40 miles an hour. And I just remember pulling up to that scene and looking out of the window and seeing this lifeless kid in this cop's arms, like slumped over, and I froze. Thankfully I wasn't touching patient. Like my partner was the one touching me, but really as a paramedic, these are the easiest calls to run. All that kid needs to be is put on a backboard, strapped down, strip down his clothes, make sure he has no other injuries, right? Establish an IV, right? Make a base run out of it. It's simple. Here, Captain, thank God you get to take the iPad because I'm going to help my partner out, get this done. We're going to get him in the box as soon as possible. I couldn't even think in that capacity. I froze. And I don't know how I got through that call without my partner or the captain. I mean, everyone was actually not focused on me. They were focused on the patient. And I think I just stood there and looked at the iPad the whole time. I couldn't even type. So the captain was very conscious, a good captain. Asked the crew, like, hey, that was a pretty tough call. Everyone okay? And what did I do?
I'm fine.
But I wasn't. Like I had so much, like the shame, right? The shame I had that was on top of the shame was, oh my gosh, I can't be a paramedic. I can't do this job anymore. Who am I going to tell? And again, I'm set up for resiliency. Fight through it. I'm expending so much energy now. Now I'm anxious. Now I'm having panic attacks. The body keeps the score. I really believe that our fascial tissue does, science is so cool. We store trauma in our fascial tissue. And not only physical trauma, we store mental trauma there too. And so my back ended up seizing up on me, right? 2 weeks after that. And I ended up off injury. Now I'm at home, isolating myself on high dose steroids, drinking, having panic attacks now. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't leave the house. My body's broken. My mind's broken. And I thought I was the only one suffering. Like I was so alone. I had lost all hope. I didn't see any way through. And I didn't know who I was going to confide in. I couldn't even tell this to my own wife. Alone, hopeless, and my darkest hours, like I mean, the filled bottle of Xanax right on the countertop. It's like I just want to swallow this bottle of pills and not wake up. And in that moment, right, when I was like contriving a stupid plan, right, of like, how am I going to get these down, like water, whatever, right, just use the sink, whatever. My buddy, the spirit of my friend, came in. I swear, it's like he saved my life, right? I like he saved my life. Said, "Do you get it now?" I could hear his voice. "Do you get it now?" And at that moment, I just had so much compassion for where he was, and the fact that he couldn't share that with anyone. That I vowed, right, to really help our warriors, right, come back from that in whatever capacity, because we're not alone. We don't have to do this alone. And so, like, Bill, like, is very much, I said his first name, doesn't really matter, is very much part of this. I will now forever have a love for him saving my life or helping me look the other direction. And I really like this. And we have a lot of veterans now having to leave our own country, right, to do psychedelics to get their own life back. And I'm not saying it's not. It's definitely a tool for transformation. at the same time, I was seeing these guys come back, some of them doing the work, meditating and like really gaining their lives back. And some were not, they weren't getting the support. Right. And again, creating a system around that of really providing guys with not only the therapy, but like peer-to-peer support. The peer-to-peer support, the love that we can give each other, the space that we can hold for each other. As warriors coming back for warriors was the thing that saved my life. It wasn't the psychedelics. It wasn't the great therapy. These are all tools. But it was the loving, authentic bond that I was able to have, right? Finally, with a brother, and to be able to share my story openly and say, hey, brother, I love you. I got you. I will die for you still. I will.
I think that's the biggest component. When you're talking about getting help, we spend so many years in this community of brotherhood, of who's to your left, who's to your right. And there are tools, like you said, meditation. For the people that are doing the psychedelics, I am all for it. Yeah. I think there are a lot of people who still hold the negative aspect from the 60s of psychedelics. Yeah. But if it's working for people, we need to reduce the barriers for them to get access to it.
I'm not at all against that as a tool.
But the component that you hit on that I think is really important is getting that sense of community around you.
And not a community around the psychedelics.
No.
That's really like happening, right? There's a community around. Again, it goes back to freedom. If I have to, like, maybe I'm not drinking anymore, but if I'm continuously having to go back down, I tell the story of Will Smith, right? He's done ayahuasca, I don't know, at the time, 6 times, more than once, doesn't matter. He had gone down and done ayahuasca, doing supposedly doing the work, right? This whole movement of like, oh, I'm just going to go do psychedelics and feel better, and maybe less drinking, maybe less reactiveness. But in his worst day, he's at the Academy Awards, right? Or one of those events. I don't follow it, right? He's at one of those events, and the man on stage, Chris Rock, like took his freedom away. Like he couldn't help himself. Oh my God, how much time did he have?
Well, like you said earlier, did Chris Rock take it or did he give it to Chris Rock?
He never, see, again, yeah. It's this idea of like, he's not even aware, right, that he's not free. And again, he let that thing, make him have an unconscious reaction. So the medicine's not going to get you there. It's the discipline, it's the work, it's the meditation, it's the restorative practices. And it doesn't happen. There's a billion different ways to meditate. I can do a walking meditation.
You've got a lot of coffee options out there. You've got a lot of veteran and first responder owned coffee companies as well. Trident Coffee is one of these companies, but they're different. Trident fuels your body and mind with a premium cold brew that's infused with powerful ingredients for performance, focus, and wellness. Made with organic MCT oil, lion's mane, and reishi mushrooms, this isn't just coffee. It's fuel for your brain, ensuring smooth, steady energy with no jitters and no crashes. Plus, the cocoa powder adds antioxidants, and the electrolytes keep you hydrated and balanced. Yes, they are cold brew experts, and their beans are brewed for cold brew optimization. But what does that mean for those of you who also love hot coffee like me? Their coffee tastes amazing, not bitter. So enjoy it hot or iced, mixed into your protein shake, or take it on the go. However you drink it, Trident Coffee is coffee upgraded. Get yours now at tridentcoffee.com and use the promo code TDP15 for 15% off your order. That's TDP15 for 15% off your order. Stay sharp, stay fueled, stay ready.
Right, maybe someone likes to knit or whatever. I mean, I can just see myself just like being in a flow state, right? It's just slowing down the thinking mind, because this is where I'm trapped. I'm thinking my way through it rather than just feeling my way through it.
My only pushback I would say to a comment that you made about not creating community around the psychedelics, I would say that if you're early in your journey and maybe multiple sessions is giving you at least a feeling of improvement and getting better, I'm all for it. Now, like you said, though, if it's now just your new crutch,
right,
and you're just replacing one other tool, one other habit
Right.
with this because it's the new kid on the block.
That's right.
Then you need to be stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. And what are you trying to mask with this, so to speak?
Well, yeah. Again, it goes back to you're now handing your freedom over not only to Chris Rock, but the ayahuasca. Well, I mean, I just need to go down and do another retreat. I need to get another hit because I come back really whole. I'm open, right? Well, this openness, this wholeness, this idea of returning back to wholeness isn't going to happen through psychedelics can help. It's a tool, but it's limited.
Right.
Like, no, this journey, this pathway that you're going to take, you're going to get beyond. In order for you to keep on climbing, you got to get beyond it. I'm not saying to totally not have it in your life and be abstinent from it. No, it's not like, listen, I drink every once in a while. And if the timing's right, and if I have a journey, it's like, I'll know, right, when I need, like, but I mean, really, the freedom that I have isn't based on something outside of me as much as possible. It's not the car. It's not the drug. It's not the weed. It's not the whatever. It's not the drama for sure now. I don't have social media. I don't really do social media. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like, I just don't need the fix.
Coming out of that, and I'll use the term reset, heard your friend's voice, you got some clarity to your life, to kind of what was going on. What were the steps for you immediately after that? Did you immediately step away from service in the sense of, hey, fire department, I'm no longer a part of this? Or was it, okay, I'm going to try to find a way to help myself and keep doing the job?
Yeah, I think, I mentioned I went to Save a Warrior, right? And that's where there was a lot of catalyst for change there.
Did you go find it on your own, or did somebody recommend it to you?
No, like everything's happens for a reason, right? They had visited our department like probably a couple months before that, and one of the captains, they actually did. The very day that I was about to take my life, he impromptu came out and drove down from Long Beach to visit me. He was worried about me, and he knew of the program and pointed it towards my spouse, and then I end up submitting a package to go.
What was that process like for you going through that program?
I mean, again, the guy that led it, Brad Gallup, right? I really owe. He's like a very strong mentor of mine, and he's like a Yoda, right? And again, the light bulb, right, was like as I was sitting in that, I was like, the light bulb was going off, and they don't do the horses now, but I experienced that. When I say that, the heart, right? And how, we went into the pen and they did equine therapy, but a different type of equine therapy. Maybe I'm not really familiar with, but where that you set an intention and that horse actually can, through your heart, know your intention and act that intention out, and you just see it. It's crazy. And I was seeing this like happen. I'm like, oh my gosh, if that horse can do that, I guess probably so can all of us, right? And again, going back to like feeling. So that's that beginning of like, I need to get back to feeling. And I need to start listening to that feeling. I need to open up those 18 pathways. I need to start opening those up. But I can't do that if I'm just caught in thinking. This is the blocker. This is the matrix. This is the prison of my own making. Control, dominate, manipulate. Control, transact with love. You're not worthy. You're never going to make it. Again, it got me to do the things that I was able to do, a lot of resiliency. But now how can I leverage that resiliency towards something like instead of manipulating people, how can I empower people? Because I'm doing the same thing, but I'm not doing it to transact. When I'm manipulating, then I'm transacting with that individual because I'm manipulating them to get something in return. But if I'm empowering someone, no, I'm reaching my hand out for you. And that in itself is just I say all we need is a grain of hope that maybe someone else is suffering too. Just a grain. And what Bill provided me through spirit, through that mystical experience, again, I can't explain it. It happened. through that mystical experience, he gave me a grain of hope. That maybe, just maybe, like, going back to your question, that I can serve in a different capacity. So I think that as I started going through this process, my department, the department I worked for really took care of me, right? They really, really took care of me. And I'm very fortunate for what I have. I medically retired, but I have now enough money to not take a single penny for doing what I do. I don't do this for money. No, I do this because it continues to save my life. And it wasn't the medicine. It was authentic, loving connections, intimate connections with other warriors. Warriors heal warriors. We do. And we will go back into the burning building. We will go into the bullets to do so. I will go back down. If I'm ascending, whatever that means. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm letting go of an old story. I'm just dropping like that rucksack. I'm just throwing shit out, right? And the more I let go of, the more energy I have to actually climb, right? But it's just bringing myself to a higher level of awareness. I'm not any better, nor do I think I know shit. I don't know anything. You can edit that out if you need to, right? Guy doesn't know anything, right? I think I know. Right? But if I stay in the state of unknowing, I'm opening myself up to the possibility that anything is possible. So what are we possible of?
I would say that admitting that you don't know anything is important, but equal to that is, it's not that you have to know. It's that you have to lead, and I say you figuratively. You have to lead by example, by showing others It's okay to admit that you have these anxieties, these fears, this buildup.
Yeah.
And it's okay to talk about it. And it's okay to raise your hand and say, I'm not right. That doesn't take knowledge. That takes courage.
You want to be right or you want to be happy? Right? It's like, and I owe this to one of the gals that leads our sound healing. She said, and it hit me, it's like, it's okay to feel. It really is okay to feel. It's okay to be emotional. But in this culture that we live in, maybe it's not safe, right? Because, what happens through manipulation and control and dominance and whatever is it gets weaponized against you too. And maybe I'm at the point in this now, like, listen, I got emotional, but I'm okay with that. Because I'm okay with feeling. That's me being not better than you. That's me being courageous for my own self. I'm being courageous. And I'm giving permission for myself to feel. And guess what? Maybe, just maybe, I'm giving permission for you and others and whoever watches this, to feel. It's okay to feel.
I guarantee you are. I guarantee that your story and I use this analogy, your story in your voice is going to hit that set of ears that it's going to be like it went to 10. And for that person, and that's all that you need, that person is going to hear it and they are going to take it and run with it.
Yeah. And we need that more than ever. We need people, we need warriors, right? To return to home, to come back home. And to be servant leaders, sovereign beings, right? Because if we become sovereign, if I have my freedom, if I'm a sovereign being, oh man, can you imagine a politician that was a sovereign being? How many politicians do you know that are not owned by someone? Money.
I say this rhetorically based on when we first started talking. I don't like politicians in general. I'm a firm believer that the great, and I know I'm making a blanket statement, but I believe all of them, regardless of what side of the fence they play on, their motivations are largely about their ego than doing what's best.
That's right. So again, it's more control, more domination, more like it's all about money. It's all about whatever pride, whatever their thing is. And again, I'm not judging it. I'm just showcasing what it is. But man, to be not owned by anyone, actually serving the public with authenticity, without a transaction, not for my own self-worth or whatever it is I'm after, because I can't love myself, because I'm caught in my own shame, daddy shame, whatever it is. Right? No. Let's start unlocking each other. Let's start empowering each other. And I mean, a platoon of 16 to 20 warriors that go overseas that are empowering each other. Like, the reason why we are as good as we are is because we have a very profound bond. I'm not discounting the trauma bond. I'm just saying, like, if we can do that, what do you think we can do? And I say not just SEALs, warriors. What do you think warriors can do when we start unlocking each other and become sovereign beings? And now we actually start holding these political offices and showcase and be an exemplar of what it means to be a true servant to society instead of a self-absorbed one.
I don't want to jump past next peak because I want to talk about that. But the question I want to ask right now kind of jumps past it in the sense that from your experience through next peak and working with veterans and first responders in that giving back space, are you seeing a significant change in the communities today, SEALs today, firefighters today, compared to when you came on, in that sense of openness and the way we're embracing what these jobs and these careers do to us?
I think, I mean, just listening to different podcasts that are out there and, some of the guys that even have spoken to you, I think we're ready for this. I think we're ready to be honest with ourselves. And I think that the more that we as warriors, guardians, whatever, can actually get this opportunity, this is a true gift. I'm so humbled and thankful to be able to share this, right? And for you to open up the doors that you've opened up. And this, right, question, right, of like, I mean, that took us into a very deep spot, right? Why? Because listen, this is my journey. This is my, like a unique pathway, right? And just because I'm a little bit more aware doesn't mean I'm any better, right? I'm not higher than you either, right? Like, yeah, it's a false peak anyways. It's an analogy, right? I'm willing to go back down into the smoggy pit of all of it because now I'm returning back down and I'm not of it. And I'm not Gandhi or Jesus in this by any means. I'm a human being doing the best I can. I still get triggered, right? But I'm still, but I'm a little bit better than I was, right? I've stepped outside of Plato's cave and I saw the actual light. You have to look it up if you haven't heard it, right? But it's when you see the light, you can't really go back in that same consciousness. And I see this as an elevation of consciousness, us really having syncing up the left. And I'm better at controlling and dominating and manipulating the world around me. I'm more authentic. I show up more authentically. I'm able to, I don't know what I'm going to talk about today. It doesn't really matter, right? If I'm thinking what I'm going to say, then I'm missing the mark.
Right.
And that's why I probably lose my track every once in a while, because it's not coming from my brain. It's coming from my feeling. How am I feeling? And can I be a full expression of that? Can I be authentic? That's the highest vibration. I think that, I declared myself this year, right? I think there's a power of a declaration. I got this from Save a Warrior. When the Declaration of Independence, right? We've declared ourselves free. That's very, I declare. It's out. So I have intention and I have declaration of who I want to be. I don't want to go back into a past story. And that's what we do to each other. That's how, if we're here in left brain thinking, if I'm not really syncing up and I'm not listening to my heart, right? I'm going to be transacting, I'm going to be manipulating and dominating, right? That's where we get stuck with each other. So
let's talk about next peak.
Yeah.
It's origin, it's formation, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So again, I was seeing my brothers go down to Mexico to do this. And to me, it's I think it's a crying shame that we have to leave our own country to experience this. And I think and this is 5 years ago, right? So it's advanced significantly since then. So, but we're still having to go down there, right? And I kind of vowed in doing my own work. I started this kind of conscious awareness thing before I even went to do a psychedelic retreat. So I got involved with the community of helping my brothers go down there and holding space for that. And but what I saw was missing. I saw the ones that really got something out of that were one part of a community. So that, I'm going back to what you're saying. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's just a matter of what we're selling to each other in that community, right? I was also seeing a group of veterans that would go down there, do the medicine, and like you could see it in their eyes. They were like alive. It's like, oh, wow. I would see them go down, and I'd see their face, and I'd see them come walk away, and a totally different person. But then 8 weeks later, I ran into a couple of them after, and they were just right back to where they were before. Actually, some of them worse off. Because now the ego is like, hey, listen, the strongest psychedelic in the world can't help you. Nothing's going to help you. Now that rhetoric, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to go back down and do more medicine. Maybe, I don't know. Or you just say, you know what? I give up. I've lost all hope now. So
I didn't ask this. Did you go down and do a psychedelic?
I did. Yeah, I did it after I went through Save a Warrior, and I did it. I was bartering with another SEAL, right, to go to Save a Warrior, because I was like a born again Christian with it. Like, everyone go to Save a Warrior. It's like the wrong way. That's the wrong approach, right? But I was young in my growth. So in bartering, I was one of my buddies. The guy that convinced me to become a SEAL. Him and I started on this path of healing together, right? And when I started opening up to him, he was opening up to me, and it just, there was a lot of exchange there. And I found out later, right? Because I think we all have the ability to, these spidey senses, or this intuition that we naturally have, because we're so stuck in left brain thinking, we miss it all, right? And we think we're in charge. No, right? Anyways, I had this overwhelming urge. I was like, I got to go to his house. I got to go to his house, and just knock on the door until he answers, and he almost took his life that day. He had a gun to his head. Right. And so he, in all this, we saved each other's lives, right? Because there was a big part of him saving my life in this too, not just Bill, but like I knew he was like a father to me, right? I knew that he would understand, but what me bringing this all out to him ended up getting all his stuff on the surface, right? So he was, whatever trauma he had, like whatever shame he had in him, right, was starting to come to the surface, because it was coming to surface me. We held space for each other. And I was trying to convince him, hey, go to Save a Warrior, right? And I'll go down and play your silly little game. We'll go down and do psychedelics. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Ibogaine, or whatever it was, and in this 5-MeO, like I couldn't even, like, what? Like I didn't look it up. I didn't have an interest in it at all. Right. So I really went in blind. But you get an integration coach, and I set good intentions, and I was already on that spiritual path. So all of my growth was like to really know thyself, like to like go back into center. And I just, my Ibogaine experience was way different than everyone else. And of course I was still caught in a lot of ego of like thinking, and I remember comparing mine to others, and they were seeing all their traumas. Like the one guy was like, oh, I've always wondered why I had this scar on my face. I saw my mom stab me in my face when I was a little boy before he, in that trauma, as not so much a victim of it, but as a participatory person with compassion, he was able to get through. Right. So I saw these things, and I had already dealt with my trauma. It wasn't I didn't have to do the medicine necessarily to do that. And so my experience wasn't that, right? Because I already collapsed that shame, that initial shame. It didn't have to come up for me. And then the 5-MeO DMT, which is they call it the God particle, right? If I believe that, and the fact that I went down there and saw a lot of other people go through, it's like, if you completely surrender, right? If you hand it all, if you hand everything, listen, I'm on the raft and I have a paddle and I'm just like maneuvering around the obstacles, right? But I'm still in control, right? This illusion of control, thinking I'm in control, right? And we're really not, right? But if I can just let go of that paddle completely, and I was already on this pathway of surrender, I was having very profound things happen to me in meditation that I can't even explain, right? It was like, whoa, it was like, this is crazy. And there was this instinctively, and I had no idea about this medicine. And the thought of smoking the venom of a toad, like I can't even smoke a cigarette. And so they give you a handshake. And so I got a little handshake and I was like, that felt cleaner than the air. And I felt the buzz, right, go through my body. So the half dose, I just like, okay, I completely surrender. And that when I went back, I took that and held it. It was a half dose. When I went back, I went through the bed and I became nothing. It was very hard to describe. It was an iridescent blue. Then it went from that blue to absolutely nothing. But at the same time, it was all the love in the universe. I felt all the love of the complete entire universe. And it's ineffable. It really kind of brings me back to that emotion of that, what that is and the power of that. And it really, like, think after that, it's like, I'm okay to die. Not that I want to end it early, but if there's any last fear that I was holding on to, it was death. Because I've never been more complete in that moment in knowing who I was. And how many times do I need to die before I get it? And man, it's not, it wasn't, there's no part of me that's addicted to that. I'm not afraid of it either. But how many times do I need to die before I get it? And I do think there's this, if you're not, and this is just my perception, I don't really know, but if you don't fully surrender, you almost go in this purgatory. I mean, I was watching guys like, I hate myself. They're under they don't know they're saying it. It's all coming out. These demons and these lower vibrational spirits or whatever is attached. And it's like, it's getting, it's coming out. So it's a powerful tool. But now where I am, it's like, oh my gosh, it needs to be treated way more sacred. And next peak, this idea of that is like, how can we, one, right, create a community around actually leveraging that experience, to actually become free, even from that, and not being in reliance to it, right? And really the idea of empowering each other. And I'm not against the communities that are wrapped around psychedelics, but it's not the medicine that's going to save you. The only thing that's going to save you is you. There is no, it's all just a temporary relief. It's just a temporary relief. You got to go back through. I use the analogy in Next Peak is like, listen, the psychedelics is the very shiny helicopter that's sitting on the pad, and you're in the valley. We're in this valley of despair, right? We're down in this valley of despair. It's smoggy. We don't even realize it's smoggy because why? We're of it, right? It's the Matrix, whatever you want to use, but you're stuck in that, right? And so that shiny helicopter, right? We like shiny objects. Like I still to this day, I get like,
we like toys.
Squirrel, right? And then lose my train of thought, and hopefully I'll be able to bring this back to the helicopter right now, right? My ADHD superpower. It's not a title. It's my superpower. So not only do we see the helicopter, but then there's a nonprofit that says, "Oh, we'll pay for it too. You don't even have to have any skin in the game. You have money, but it doesn't matter. We'll pay you. Well." think we're empowering you, but we'll give you this money to be able to have the experience. I don't really have anything invested in it. All I know is that I saw Jimmy Bob come back from a Tijuana trip because he's so freaking filled with life. He's going to the top of every mountain. He's a born again 5-MeO or whatever, right? Like everyone's got to do this medicine. And yeah, I think there is, this is a powerful tool, right? You know, again, going back to, but again, I have to do the work, right? So this shiny helicopter, I get on it. I take this miraculous, beautiful flight. This helicopter is really cool. It's got an open door, of course. I like to win my helicopter, my story. And we get to the very top, and we look down at the top of this peak, and there's this helipad there, and there's these people, and I see them dancing, and they're like, oh, they're so free. I could feel it. I was like, oh, that's who I am. That's really who I am. And you go to the pilot and say, hey, that's where I belong. That's where we're landing. I'm not going back down. And the pilot looks at me and says, hey, player, yeah, you can get off right now. Door's open. It's just one step. But what am I missing? I'm still stuck in fear. I don't have the faith that really is who I am. So guess what? I have to really, like, I can get glimpses of it. Right? And that's the carrot, hopefully. I can get glimpses of it. But guess what? I have to, because of my own fear, I'm like, I can't take this step. I tell you right now, I could take that step. I could take that step. Because I'm okay with dying. Right? And maybe just the eternal part of who we are, right? The souls that we are. This is not religion. The souls of we are the eternal beings that we are. We are just souls navigating our way through a body that gets passed down multi-generational trauma that then gets validated with shame. That wasn't ours in the first place. It's a hero's journey. It's a hero's journey. It's Joseph Campbell. It's a hero's journey. I had to go through it. And now the idea of really getting complete with that is having that viewpoint of like, oh my gosh, every single thing that goes back to this movie, right? Every single thing in this movie that I produced, directed, acted in, all of it, I now can write the script of because I'm aware, right? Was all for me. But I just played the victim card. And I controlled and dominated and manipulated. I was really, really, really good at not being authentic and transacting with love. Every time I would transact with love, I was setting myself up for resentment, a trauma. Why? Because if it didn't come back to me the way I wanted it, then now I'm abandoned again. So we have to do the work. I have to go back down into the valley of despair. And I have to start climbing because as I start to ascend consciously in alignments with awareness, maybe even getting more back to my true north of who I really am, my calling, my purpose. Right? I think those that are warriors, right? First responders to include nurses that we already talked about that. Those that are warriors, their purpose and calling is usually service. But it doesn't mean you listen, I think look, like where I am now, I wish I was a paramedic now. I wish that I had the opportunity to redo some of those calls that I was on, right? Where I stepped into a house after midnight and didn't want to be there and had no compassion, but put on a face. But what energy am I actually emanating? I wish I had the capacity to go back, right? But I know, like my calling and purpose, I'm serving in a different capacity. I'm humbly serving to be able to share this on this podcast with you, in hopes that only like just one person, the light bulb goes off and says, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm not free." Just one. That's it. Like that's worth spending this day. Right? In this energy, right? And I don't want anything in return. I don't need attaboy, great job. It's not about that. I get to be authentic, right? The more I do this work, the more I'm climbing on this peak. And the more I surround myself with other veterans and warriors that are actually empowering each other instead of stepping on each other's heads, right? Instead of being trauma bonded, now we're authentically loving, intimately connected with one another. That's what is going to save us from killing ourselves. It's not the psychedelics. You need to have at least one person, hopefully 3, 5. I have 10 or more brothers that I'm authentically connected with that continue to save my life, and I do the same for them. We come back for each other like no other. That's really what Next Peak is. Right? That's the inspiration of empowering people. So we started off with therapy and peer support, and then eventually the peer support and the community that we were building authentically with one another through that is what we are doing now, right? For all veterans, really, right? And first responders. There's no accidents in this. We had an office. I started off with an office in Solana Beach, and it was right down the street from what I didn't know was a VFW. I don't know, Veterans of Foreign Wars. And my mindset of a veteran of foreign war is just a dingy, dark, watering hole. A lot of, the smell of smoke, right? I think the last bar in America that you could probably smoke in, right? And so I was looking for a place to reside. We were looking for an office for Next Peak, and I initially found this with a therapist that was the lead therapist that was helping veterans. She's a phenomenal therapist that deals with affect phobia therapy. We have a fear of our own feelings, and bringing guys back to center through feelings, right? But then what the match to that, right, is the peer support. So the guys that were doing the work with that modality of healing, right, we're actually sharing feelings with one another. So that really was, again, what we saw was like, wait, this is not about the therapy. That's just the tool, right? The minute I say, oh my gosh, it's like I have to have her, she's my savior. No, you save yourself. They're just tools. And now that's the talk, right? Is that through empowerment, right? We come back for each other. We instead of giving a handout, I say we're a hand up. We're a hand up. I can give you a hand up. Why? Because I do it because I'm not transacting with you, because it's going to continue to save my life. Right? And if we get a collective, right? This goes back to, if we have a collective of this, is we ascend faster, right? And again, what are we capable of when we're connected like that, authentically? Like, how can we, wow. I mean, so now veterans and first responders, right? So this idea of being at the VFW.
Sponsorship for this podcast comes from Brothers in Arms USA. They're a veteran-owned and operated clothing and accessories brand that's 100% American-made. Every piece tells a story of brotherhood, respect, discipline, and honor. Deeply inspired by those who serve, those who have served, and those who have paid the ultimate price serving our great country. Whether you're an outdoor enthusiast, a proud patriot, or simply somebody who values high-quality American craftsmanship, they've got something for you. Go check out brothersinarms.com, spelled out fully, brothersandarms.com, and use the promo code TRANSITION20 to get 20% off your purchase.
I got a phone call from a buddy of mine. Says, "Hey, you need to meet this guy, Max, and he's an ex-team guy that's remodeling the VFW, and I think it's right down the street from you." I was like, "Okay," and he had already done the remodel, right? And so I ended up meeting him and at the post, and thinking to myself, I was like, "I didn't even know this building existed," right? So Max had already been at that a year, and there was that post was being held by a lot of the Vietnam guys. So there was 70, 80-year-olds, and then there's Max. And Max saw had this vision of like this is on the 101 of Solana Beach. Why, this building's not being used? So him and another veteran, they got together and they raised their own money. They had to be mindful. The leadership had $250,000 in the bank, right? I'm not saying anything bad for these guys, but they couldn't see the vision of what he was after, right? So he raised his own money. He did all his own work, laid the floor and remodeled it, because the building was abandoned, essentially. They weren't even using it.
Every VFW I've been in is Formica and fluorescence.
Right.
And that's probably they didn't want to spend any money.
No.
They wanted to keep it like it was.
Well, because the money in the bank was earning interest that then they can just sip off of and just have their meetings. And it was their place of once a month to escape from, to feel safe amongst each other, right? And listen, the Vietnam guys, like I hope some of your guys are Vietnam. It's like, I'm sorry your country didn't fucking have your back. I just could feel that right now. That you had to go into hiding and drink yourselves to death. Not everyone, but a lot of them. Or get addicted to whatever. I'm sorry we didn't have your back. It wasn't you. Most of these guys didn't want to even go over there in that capacity. Right? But the ones that were probably stuck, right? The ones that went through a lot of trauma, man.
Talking to some...
Talk about abandonment.
Yeah. Talking to some, what I'll call old timers, is unfortunately the men and women in law enforcement today who have been doing it the last 5 or 6 years, they're kind of experiencing their Vietnam. Yeah. Where and not all of the society. Yeah. But enough and a vocal portion of society putting them down, making them feel like what they're doing is worthless. And so in no way am I trying to compare the two. No. It's just an era that they're going through.
I love the shiny object. Can I talk on this?
Please.
Absolutely. Right. We only want police officers when our life is like we're about to die, right? I think the toughest job in the world is what a police officer has to do in his own backyard. Listen, I went overseas and went to Afghanistan and I saw some horrific things, but I was so lucky to be able to go to Germany and spend some days there, have a therapist. I mean, we are freaking, it's a machine. We take, we do the best we can, right? With getting guys integrated back into society. But police officers were one call away of a bad call, then having to go right back with their families. There's no switch at all. And the amount of shame and things and moral injuries that are incurred, right? And we're not taking care. I don't think the leadership is taking care of our police officers and understanding the complexity of what's actually happening. It's not an unconscious reaction or someone maybe like putting their knee on someone's neck or whatever, right? He's in survival mode. He's so stuck in fear. His life was jeopardized. He's built, right, to survive. He or she is built to survive. And then we're not seeing that. And then we're blaming this on them. It's like we need to take a look at our whole system. Right? Let's really talk about the importance of getting a police officer to become a peace officer. The opportunity for even them, that's why first responders are so, especially police, I want them to go through a save aware. I want them the light bulb to start going off, whatever it needs to take to get them to realize that they don't have to bring a certain energy to a call to survive.
Unfortunately, for the people who don't operate in the first responder world, the analogy that I always like to use is, unfortunately, the bulk of our work comes at the end of 3 numbers, 911.
Yeah.
And nobody's picking up the phone and calling 911 because their day is fantastic.
That's right. Yeah. No.
Every call you're going to is the worst day of that person's life for the greater majority of it. And this is the soup that you simmer in for 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much nuances in that. And I think there's a lot also because of whatever story they went through, right? The projection, right? The projection on the overlap. Like again, I think you really, what hits you the most is the things that you went through as a child. Mm-hmm. Right. So again, what is that eliciting? That's eliciting this very powerful, like like emotion. I am not safe. And now I have a gun, right? I have whatever tools I have to make myself feel safe.
That is, and I don't mean this in any negative way at all, but the one thing that is a commonality, veterans, first responders, a lot of us come into these careers with a lot of baggage already.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, maybe we're fighting to get that sense of control, safety, whatever it is. Or like you talked about, we come from trauma as young men and women, and we learn that, call it a skill, the ability to pacify the situation, to not let it get worse.
Yeah.
And then what do? We go into that first responder world, and we want to do that same thing. Yeah. And all it's doing is, oh, wait, the trauma that's way down here that's ours naturally, we're just going to pile more on top of it.
Right. But that's what I learned how to do. I learned to shove it in my rucksack. Hey, that was a tough call, guys. Everything all right? I had every opportunity I wish. And now, like where I am now, I'm like, no, actually, you know, Cap, that boy was my 14-year-old boy. And I felt like I just stared at the iPad all day. How courageous is that? But for me, that's not like, that's like, why wouldn't I say that? But that's where my mind is. But where my mind was at the time, I couldn't.
Right.
I like that. Oh, like I have a persona. I have like, oh, he used to be a SEAL. He's supposed to be tough. I'm trying to live up to something I'm not. It's exhausting. Again, no freedom.
Going back and talking about the importance of putting the right people around you for not only your treatment, but for your progress forward.
Yeah.
There is that component, but then it still comes back down to you individually. For you on a day-to-day, you've already mentioned meditation.
Yeah.
What are your core tenets that get you through on an individual basis each day?
Yeah. For me, meditation is, and this is for me, right? I'm not trying to sell this as some, it's like, you know, like, oh, you have to meditate. But for me in my journey, it's like this control, dominate, manipulate, unconscious reaction. How do and I have a different viewpoint of it now, so I can put it in a different context. But I think there was a part of me that knew that I had to slow this down. I read a book called, oh man, it was referred to me. I'll make sure I give it to you, right? When it comes to me, but it talked about this idea of the spigot of thoughts, right? Often I'll tell somebody, oh, you're just gonna meditate. Like, I can't meditate. I think way too much. That's why you got to meditate, right? Yeah, right. I'm right. You're thinking too much, right? Thinking, thought. You have a thought, you build upon a thought. So how do I turn that down? I go to the gym to work out my body, but how do I turn down that spigot? Well, for me, it was meditation. I think that's why I was having some of these mystical out of body experiences, because I was slowing down my thinking mind. I was going more to that the connection in my heart. Like everything was coming online. It was just happening so fast. So if I can reduce thinking, well, how do I do that? Well, I have to train myself. So it's not, the idea for me is not to sit and not think like that. If that's my goal, like I'm going to fail right away. Because why? I'm going to have a thought right away. It's like, it's like, so, but my goal, right? And the way they call it warrior meditation, it's to save a warrior. I often point guys that I work with a lot of first responders, like as peer support through Sharp Performance as a company. And you can put that in the thing too. It's a great, actually, and I'll just give it, it's not, I don't work for the company. I am a coach, right? But peer support in the police and fire is not working. Why? Because I didn't trust the guys that were my peer support, right? I'm not going to tell them my secrets, right? So I needed, the Sharp Performance created a coaching / peer support program that's outside of the agency that I think is very, very effective, right? Because it gives safe space for people, for warriors to actually let things out, right? To clear themselves. That was a shiny object. Bring me back. What were we talking about before that?
Well, the whole overarching thing was about meditation.
Okay, meditation. So I teach warrior meditation. That's where Sharp Performance came in. So the idea of warrior meditation is they it goes through a system of nullifying thoughts, right? Reducing thoughts or trying to reduce thought. And we do that through a mantra and some kind of tapping or some kind of thing, right? So they have that. And then you go into a breathing phase where I'm really concentrating all my effort, everything on breathing. And as I breathe in and I breathe out, I'm following that breath, right? And I'm actually also doing a mantra. It's really hard to have a thought pop in when you're doing something like that. And the last bit of that meditation, so it's 20-minute meditation broken up into 3 segments. So it's they're like one bite at a time, right? Instead of like sitting with yourself for 20 minutes, which is you're not going to be able to do. Me too, right? At times, right? But that last phase is called metacognition. And what I'm training myself to do, right? And I can go right into metacognition. I don't have to do all this. What I'm training myself to do is be the observer of my thoughts. Because if I am my thoughts, right? Like, this new age, like, it's like, oh, you just manifest, right? Yeah, like manifest your money. And there's all kinds of podcasts like, well, how the fuck do I manifest? I don't even know what it feels like to have $1 million. But they say you have to have the feeling. And guess what? I have to have the thought behind the feeling, right? And then you can manifest it, right? Well, guess what we're doing to ourselves constantly? We have the feeling of anxiety. And then I'm saying I am anxious. And guess what? I'm thinking anxious thoughts. So what do you think the world outside of me is going to be? I've manifested myself into being anxious because now the world, because it has me, right? It has me. Now I'm being validated. Okay, you should be anxious. You should be anxious. Or depression, same way, right? We are, because we think we are our thoughts and we have feelings behind it, we become that very thing. Again, this is just my universe, right? You take it or leave it, right? But that's the game I play with myself, right? So then through meditation, if I learn to be the observer of my thoughts, wait. I'm not anxious. I'm having moments of anxiousness. It's okay. It's okay to feel, right? So now a thought comes in, right? Whatever. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Track your thoughts, right? Just sit with yourself for 5 minutes. Just put a timer, sit with yourself for 5 minutes and track your thoughts. All of them are what? They're in the past or they're in the future. Any thought you have right at that moment is not a thought. Right? It's awareness. Anything in the current right there is just awareness. But what am I doing? I'm either in the past or I'm for surely projecting that past, anxious, into my future. See that? So now if I become the observer, that thought comes in. Okay, I don't need to mow the lawn right now. That's a past thought. Let it go. Just let it go. Let that thought go. Future thought. Okay, let it go. Right? Swipe right, swipe left. And I teach guys, it's like the leaf coming out of the tree. You're not the leaf. Just observe the leaf. Let it hit the river and let it go. Just let it go. So what am I doing by not building upon thought? Because what do we do? We have a thought, and then we have another thought on that thought, and another thought, and then right
takes you back to the past thought, and
right, and then now I'm all these thoughts are a collective that are now I'm projecting actually literally in my future, right? And I'm having feelings that I'm like, again, you can see it. It's like I'm literally creating my own reality. I am manifesting my own anxiousness, and everything around me is going to be, and I surround myself because I'm an addict, right? I'm surrounding myself. So how do I get through? I have to learn to turn the spigot down. I do that through observation of thought, right? And then the more I practice that, I'm like, wait, I don't really think as much as I used to. Yeah, I think there is a component of me thinking, right? But the more I get into a flow state, right? Think about when you're whatever activity, like when you're in a flow state, where's time? It almost goes away. It's like, I remember almost dying in a parachute accident. And I remember like seeing the ground come up really fast and going through but it was like time was non-existent. It was very crazy. So if we go into these flow states, right? I don't know how long we've been here. I guess it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, eventually I'm going to leave, but it doesn't matter, right? So less thinking, more into heart space, right? More into coherence of more of your true north, right? So meditation allows for you to become the observer, recognizing that I'm not my thoughts. Oh, an anxious thought, it's okay to feel, right? But it's a practice. Like for me, I practice every single day. I get up, I built in, I think there's different wavelengths your brain's in. And I won't go into any of that, but when you're sleeping, you're low, right? And then you wake up and you're still kind of already there, right? So I meditate right after I just get out of bed. I go into my space that I designated as a meditation space, and I meditate for 30 minutes. Set a timer, and I go right into meditation. I just start listening to tracking thoughts, observe, let it go, and I think some of the experience, like I had an experience. I can remember being on my patio of the house and listening to this bird. And it made me emotional. I had never heard a bird like that before in my life. No. That bird was there the whole time. But I couldn't hear it. Well, let me back up. I was hearing, I wasn't really feeling it. I wasn't really getting the full, because I was probably thinking about, I was letting the world pass by, or I was creating my own world, the illusion, right? Through my own thinking. And I was missing reality. So the more I started like, okay, wow, there's something here. And, so I have a very practice. I meditate every day. If I have a bad day, or if I'm kind of guided towards, like, I think the more I clear up that my intuition, right? We all have intuition. That comes a little bit more online. So every once in a while I'll get a hit and like, hey, just meditate, right? When I leave here, I will just like, I have that Tesla that pretty much drives itself on the freeway. I'm there, but I'm not there. Just disappear, right? Restore yourself, right? And the more we learn how to do that, the more we start following, right, our intuition, right, the spidey senses. We all knew, right? Like there's times in your career, it was like, ooh, something's not. But how many times, right? How many times did you not listen to that? Why? Because you were caught in thinking, right? So meditation, the observation of thought, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not my anxiousness. I feel it. Okay to feel. And again, I don't have to think it. I don't have to I am myself into it, and I don't have to create a reality that's going to justify the feeling. I just need to have a safe space, right? To maybe to one, understand that it's okay to feel. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. And but again, it goes back to that safe house. I didn't grow up in a safe house. The world outside of me wasn't. I defended the very freedoms we have. I wasn't free, right? So where am I? Where do I heal? Where does a warrior heal? I heal with other warriors in a safe space. That, again, it goes back to Next Peak. And I'll also say this: a year ago, I my intuition, right? I had an inspiration of. We had an initiative. So I'm here at the post, right? We're doing therapy and peer support upstairs. And someone came to me and said, hey, they had met me. I think I did some news thing up in LA, and it was part of Treat California. I don't know if there was an initiative that was going to be helping with psychedelics to help become more accessible to more people. Anyway, it fell apart, but I had the opportunity to do a news thing to talk about it. And so out of that, I met like several people, right? And one of the guys I met was a veteran who was leading a suicide prevention program. And he came to me after we met and said, hey, I'm in North County, San Diego. Do you mind if I hold a suicide prevention meeting at the post? And I was already kind of there. I was already doing the work upstairs, and I felt obligated to go to the meetings, at which I wanted to poke my eyeballs out at. But at the same time, I knew that, and I had this compassion for these Vietnam guys, right? And I wanted them to be seen. I wanted them to be loved. I wanted to give them my energy. So there was a bit of empowerment that was happening there. I wasn't doing it for any other reason, right? And Max, who has started this whole project, wasn't getting wasn't able to move forward, right? You know, it was too much of a radical change for them. Right? Once again, can't like, listen, they're in their 70s and 80s and you just don't want to take their house away from them, right? You know, it's like, and I love these guys, right? And I want their wisdom, right? I want them to be free as well, right? So let's bring in the old and the new, right? So anyway, I just had a little more at the time of my journey. I had a little bit more wisdom, but I say this for Max. I'm like, we wouldn't be where we are today if he didn't have that initial inspiration, right? That to step in that post and do what he did. And so he got very disillusioned and pulled away, but we high-fived each other, right? And he became a co-founder with Next Peak. So as I'm now sitting through those painful meetings, right, and doing, you know, serving these guys and doing the things, this guy approaches me and said, "Hey, can we do this meeting here?" I was like, "I don't see why not. This post isn't being used." So I got permission. They said, "Yeah, I think this is great." And really it was me saying, "Hey, listen, guys, like our mission here is to support veterans, and we're not really doing a good job of that. We're serving each other, but how can we open this up to more?" Right? Was how, you know, the question I posed. So that question got answered by allowing them, you know, they allowed Sparta, right? And it wasn't me that allowed it. Guess what? It was them. It's their post. So now they're being, you know, they see like, and not only that, but they saw new members. These younger 9/11 guys were coming to the dinners. They were coming to the meetings at least once, right? And then they figured out what they were stepping into. They're like, I'm never going to one of those again. But they became members, and really the VFW, all they care about is membership. So anyway, right? So we end up starting so we were doing the therapy peer support, but now there was meetings around it. There was community being built around it. We also, I had another veteran come to me and say, "Hey, I'd like to do an AA meeting on Saturday morning." So we had AA meetings out of there. And it was a safe space. I mean, any AA work, right, or any 12-step work is spiritual in nature, right? And they set a container. So what a perfect, this is like, I want this to be a safe place for people to actually heal. So out of all that, we end up having like 20 new members come to the post, right? And they were all post 9/11 guys for the most part. And so they were like, "Wow, this is like, we want more of this." I'm like, "Great. Like, yeah, let's go." Like, and so what came out of that, I was inspired to start an initiative called Project Restore Hope. So Project Restore Hope, the idea is to restore hope back into the original mission of why the VFW started in the first place. They didn't start off as being canteens and bars and places, drinking holes. They started off 125 years ago during post, right, the Spanish-American War, and those guys came back from that war like really beat up. Right? We don't talk about that war at all, but they were coming back pretty bad. And we didn't have a VA. So these veterans, and it's like I always kind of jokingly say, well, it wasn't two guys coming together saying, "I'm broken, you're broken, let's create community around it." No, it was probably our spouses, right? Right? It was the intuition of the women, right? You know, that said, "Hey, we need to help these knuckleheads out," right? Thank God for the women in our lives. Anyways, I just get, in case you have women listening to this, right? You know, like, you guys save us, you help us, you empower us, right? So we just don't listen most of the time. That's on us. Anyway, so we were coming together. You know, we created all these programs, and we were creating these things to create community around growth and healing. And so the original mission for the VFW was just that. That was the energy. That's where they came together in community to help each other grow and heal from whatever traumas they had. And somehow, I think probably post World War II, right? Then it went to more of community around drinking, which again, I think alcohol is also a tool, right? If you can not numb yourself with it, right? But the Restore Hope is going back to the original mission of why the VFW started in the first place, is to help each other, like hold space for each other to heal. They actually, a lot of people don't know this, the VFW actually started the VA system. We wouldn't have the VA system that we have today, right, if it wasn't for them. So one of the first legacy veteran service organizations out there, right? And right now, I think the disposition, I mean, there's a lot of great nonprofits out there that are doing, that are filling, but the VFWs is really, a lot of that is the old guard, right? And and a lot of these guys that are Vietnam guys are stuck in the old way of thinking, right? And so what I'm saying with Project Restore Hope, let's take this post back to the original intent of why the VFW started in the first place, and let's remodel it. Let's make it feel like a second home. Instead of being a dark, dingy place, let's have a 24-foot glass panel door, right? That can have the white fog thing, right? That'd be really cool. Really expensive. But hey, we deserve it, right? Is make this a safe place. Make it feel like home. Let's not hang dead people on the walls. I think there's a place to memorialize people, and I think there's a place to heal. When I'm sitting at a bar, when I'm sitting at Danny's and I'm looking at all my brothers that are no longer, like, I've lost 10 good friends to combat suicide or training. And yes, I'll never forget them, but they don't want me to stay stuck. So when I'm drinking and I'm toasting, right, I'm staying stuck. I'm staying stuck to that. Right. So the whole new, like, restore hope, right? Well, if we restore hope back into the original mission, let's go back to that original energy of creating community around healing, authentic connections, love, inspiration, empowerment for each other, right? A safe place to actually be able to finally heal, right? Again, I can't heal outside of those walls, right? And it isn't saying not that particular place, but it's the people that are part of the community that are holding space for each other like no other. And so what essentially what we're doing for each other is we're creating hope for each other. We're doing it for each other. We're giving out grains of hope, right? Essentially. So that was the inspiration. And so I've been, I got the domain for it a year ago. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'll hold on to it. So that is the bigger part. Next Peak is a vehicle that helps a mission of restoring hope and creating community at these VFWs. So I see really this alignment of, I love for Project Restore Hope to have a very powerful alignment with the VFW, one of the first nonprofits. Let's empower them to create community around healing and growth, going back to the original mission. Let's maybe not use the same buildings. Maybe we can use the same buildings, but let's see what this looks like. Let's see what a Restore Hope VFW in Solana Beach looks like. And I guarantee you that we will sell, we will be, here's part of the remodel. Cold plunges. That's the new rage, right? IR saunas, red light therapy, sound baths, meditations, like whatever, right? Yoga, right? Like all these restorative practices that we can do there. And really, they're all shiny objects, right? But if I'm going to have a membership at a cold plunge, it's like $200 a month. You know what it costs a year to be a VFW right now for our post? It's $36 a year. And then you'd have access to all this stuff. So we just had to create value around healing.
I think I default to this saying it's funny, but it's not funny. When you think back of, like you mentioned, how the VFW came to be and then what it morphed into what we know as the VFW. And the way you were explaining it, we like to keep them like a morgue.
Yes.
They're dark.
Yeah.
They're quiet. We got all the pictures on the walls of all of our fallen brothers and sisters. And then what do? We compound that by drinking a depressant.
That's right.
To keep us in that low state.
That's right.
Whereas in all reality, when you think about it, it should be bright, vibrant. Take the component of whether or not you want to have drinking or not. But the idea that when you walk in the doors, it's not a memorial hall.
That's right.
It's a hall of moving forward.
That's right.
Getting better.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was that is the inspiration. Like that is Restore Hope, is that we create spaces. I mean, there's a lot of, if Project Restore Hope is a nucleus, right, of a nucleus of health, right? If we have all kinds of spokes that go beyond, all the tools essentially, right? If we can help with all the tools, right? But then getting someone to the center point of restoring hope, right? And have a community, right? Of which like Next Peak, that's where Next Peak's like, that's what we do. We empower, right? And we grow community and connections, authentic connections, loving connections, right? So that doesn't cost that much money, right? And so, but it's all the other things, like all the other tools, psychedelics, whatever, that, okay. And I'm not saying Project Restore Hope is even going to go that route of psychedelics. I think we even like, hey, let them, that world do that world, right? But there's so many things out there that are very, very, very healthy that we can do, right? That are not clinical. And if anything, like even a relationship, not only with the VFW, but potentially with the VA, it's like the VA's not that's not bad. They're just overwhelmed. They can't, they don't have, they don't have the capacity. And in my opinion, they're putting Band-Aids on hemorrhaging people. I was on 6 different medications and I wanted to take my own life.
And to a degree, it's kind of like us talking previously about the first responder community, especially the law enforcement world today. What sells or what people take the time to put out on social media is the negative.
Right.
And so where I'm bringing this back around to with the VA is a victim of a few instances of people having a bad experience. Yeah. But those are the people that take the time to make that social media post.
That's right.
Nobody takes the time to get on social media and go, hey, I just went to the VA. Everything was smooth. It was easy. Yeah. Because it doesn't create anger. It doesn't create that angst where you want to voice this.
They're feeling anxiousness.
Yeah.
Again, you can see it right there. It's like they're thinking anxious thoughts, and guess what? This VA is not going to work out. I've already sold myself. No, I have had very, very good experiences with the VA. And I'm just saying, hey, listen, let's give someone space, right? With the right meds, right? Again, medications, over the counter, or not over the counter, but pharmaceutical medications can be a tool as well, just like anything else. Let's give someone the right medications, right? But then how are we going to get them? How can we plan on getting them off those medications? So I'm not going down to Mexico and doing psychedelics, or I'm not having to load myself with whatever, right, pill to adjust myself. Can I do that myself? I don't know. Sometimes, like, I feel like sometimes Western medicine wants you to believe, no, you have to be on this pill for the rest of your life because you're this label, this label, this label.
The people that I've spoken to, it almost seems like they put you on the first one, and then if you come back and go, I'm still having issues, it's not that they back off the first one and go try this one. It's like, well, add this one to it.
Right.
And pretty soon you're on this cocktail of medication.
Yeah. And again, they're doing the best they can. But is that getting at the root cause of the problem?
No.
So really, it's like we know, and are they? I think they're open, right? I think they want the best, right, for us, right? But I really see some of these, like a Save a Warrior, right, where it's like, okay, let's get at the root. Let's really get at the root cause of the problem. Is it the alcohol the problem? No, there's something else that's the problem. That's 12-step. It's not the alcohol that you have a problem with. It's your journey or whatever story or whatever you're telling yourself, right? Because you have to numb yourself with the alcohol. Alcohol is not the problem. And again, going back to my initial comment, it's like what we all need is emotional sobriety. Let's create a 12-step program around that, right? And just destigmatize the 12-step, like, because people are shameful, like that are out, like, that say I'm an AA. There's shame behind that. Like most people won't tell you, right? I work a 12-step program.
And I've heard this said in many different ways, but the variation of it is alcohol is the only drug in our society that you have to explain why you're not taking it.
Right.
We put this, what do you mean you don't drink? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, right. It's so culturally accepted, right? And right. We really have, we're of it, right? It like the whole industry, the industry doesn't want you to be drinking less, right? And maybe pharmaceutical companies don't want you to be healthy. I don't know. I'm not saying, right? And I'm not getting any conspiracy, but this is all a subconscious play, right?
How about we just do this test? How about we adopt the Europe mentality or the way of doing business where there isn't advertisements for medical type drugs on TV.
Right. Yeah. Because that's going to be my savior. That's the next thing. I have to, and then the insurance companies. Like, there's so many guilty parties in this. And what I'm saying is, like, listen, if we're really empowering each other, if we're really restoring hope in each other, it's not the medicine. Let's use the medicine. Let's leverage the VA for what they are, but let's come up with create a community where now you can actually land, right? Let's work in harmony with each other, right? Let's create again, this opportunity for the VFW, who started the VA. Let's bring those two together somehow. And I really believe the inspiration of Restore Hope, Project Restore Hope, right, is just that. Why can't we have Project Restore have a direct line to the VA and the VFW now, right? There's a place for these guys to go. And I mean, there's so many things that we can do better for our veterans. And unfortunately, like the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, means that, well, although my mission says I can serve all veterans, most of them are mutual benefit nonprofits, which means, guess what? You have to be a member in order for me to support you legally.
I think a benefit, though, is if you're able to move the VFW, I'll call it forward.
Right.
And we get away from what all of us think of our grandfather's VFW.
Right.
You're going to get more of the younger post 9/11 men and women coming in.
It has to be a rebranding, though.
Pull that mic just a little bit closer. You're moving a little far from it.
Yeah, sorry. There has to be a rebranding there. Like, we have to rebrand it.
Yeah.
And that rebranding is that's going to be a really tough one for the VFW to accept, right? I mean, we're still dealing with buddy. Do you know what a buddy poppy is? I just yeah, right. They are making do donations for buddy poppy. That was not only, it was a World War I or II, World War I, I think, thing, and it was a Britain thing, right? It was. I think but that's really where, they're steeped in tradition, right? They have a certain hat, they have the pins. And what I'm saying is, like, this current day veteran, right? This current day veteran I don't want to wear the hat. I want to, not that I want to escape the military, right? But this shouldn't be about a command structure. This is about a community.
Right.
And I get it. In order to run a business, we have to have a command structure. But do we have to be paramilitary? Do I need to be stuck in that? Right. And can we, as a Restore Hope VFW, let's, also, hey, listen, I think that I put hours upon hours into that VFW. I don't make a single penny. And again, I don't do it for money, but in order for us to get talent or people to run these new Restore Hope VFWs and create programs around healing, well, we need to pay people, right? Maybe that's maybe it becomes a coveted position, right? They just I'm now the commander of that post. They just handed it to me.
Here, you do it.
You do it. I'm like, oh, like, now I'm the one leading this meeting I want to poke my own eyeballs at. And I'm not saying it's just, hand salute the flag. I had to, the covers, and it's just like, right? It's like, how can we make it such that we can hold on to tradition? It's fine, right? But honor, right, the new. And I think if the VFW, in my opinion, if the VFW is going to survive, and they're declining rapidly, right? Why? Because the current day of the veteran, right, like the 9/11 veteran, isn't going into the dive bars. If I'm going to go to a bar, I'll spend a little bit more money. I'll go to a place where I can chase tail at least. I'm not like, and there's a few probably that are don't have the money to spend $12 for a drink, and I don't know how much a drink costs now.
I'm just willing to bet that 30 to 35-year-old veteran does not want to go hang out in when I don't care who you are. You say VFW, there's an image that comes to your head, and they don't want to go hang out in that.
So that's why for us, it's like this idea of rebranding, and I'm going to be working with the VFW. Say, hey, let us do a pilot. Let us come up with a Restore Hope VFW, your logo, Restore Hope logo. Let's come up with a pilot, right? And work together. What do you have to lose? Like, I'm not asking for any money. Let me create a playbook for what it means to be Restore Hope VFW. And let me sell the place out. Let me show you that, listen, I can't take on any more veterans or first responders. And if we're a Restore Hope VFW, in my opinion, it's like, well, we serve all veterans. They don't have to become a VFW member. They can become a Restore Hope member.
Right.
Right. And then guess what? If they qualify to be the VFW, part of the VFW, then I'll pay for your annual or your lifetime membership. Right. And now you, as a Restore Hope VFW, a Restore Hope member, you have access to the VFW. We changed the bylaws to allow now even first responders. I want our brothers that are in our community to become peace officers. Why can't we bring them into the fold? They're the same people. Right. So what an opportunity to serve. Right. You know, and I don't know. I mean, again, I'm just the vessel, right? Mm-hmm. to help this, you know, and there may be people, you know, maybe someone just sees this as, yeah, like I want to get behind that. Yeah, please, we need help. This is an army. Like if we're going to do this, if we're going to take back, right, what is ours, our freedom, if we're going to take this back, we have to do it together. And I'm not saying we need to fight the system either. This is not about, oh, we need to bear arms. No, I need to become free. I don't have any weapons anymore, right? I have, you know, they're around, but I just don't, I'm not sleeping with one under my bedside anymore. Why? I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not saying I'm not putting protective measures in place, right? But I'm not caught in fear and hypervigilance. And I don't have to go sit in the restaurant with my back against the wall, looking at the door, waiting for that guy to come in, and I can take my concealed out and across the room put a bullet in his head. It's not my mindset anymore.
You don't want to live in red 24/7?
Right. So I'm exhausted, right? So here I am now, right, on this journey. We got Next Peak, right, and then Project Restore Hope. Yes, please, like if you're inspired by this, like I mean, I want people to know about this, right? You know, I want this to take off, and it's not because I'm trying to build this up and be like, oh, look what I did. No, it's not about me. It's about what we can do as a collective to come back for each other. That's what we do. Right. And I'll say it over and over again. And what an opportunity for the VFW, right? To say, you know what? Let's try it. Let's go. Let's do it. Right. And then other organizations, right? We have a nonprofit called Operation Restorations, who I swear there's like, universe has a C-17 flying over the VFW and people are just hopping out and they're parachuting and landing right on my doorstep. I've been asking for help. I need help with this building. I can't manage the VFW, Next Peak, and now Project Restore Hope and this building remodel, right? I need help, right? And so this Operation Restorations came in and loves what we're doing, right? They see the opportunity, right, for being the people that just do these remodels. Like let's create another Restore Hope VFW in the town near you, right? And yeah, the playbook's the same, but you don't have to have cold plunges at yours. If you're in Montana and you're like, I don't want to get in the cold water. It's like what brings together community for you, right? You know, and yeah, the playbook's the same. Look, the playbook is like we're holding space for each other, right? Maybe we have a really good training around peer support. What does that really mean? That I'm being a peer to someone.
I think that is a key element of what could be offered is a safe space of peers, but that there is a component who are trained, who can be available to listen.
That's it. That's all I have to do is I have to get out of my own thinking of or judgment or whatever for that particular person's journey, like where they are on their path. Like the minute I don't have any understanding or love for them, then I'm stuck, right? Like I need just love, and that's all I need. Two things: I need to listen, I need to have love, and I need to have understanding. That's it. Like it's really simple, right? Like really simple. If I have those three things in that moment. And I stop trying to solve their problems. Like I cannot solve your problem. You have to solve your problem. And there's I'm not your medicine. Maybe I just bring you to a higher level of awareness or the light bulb goes off, whatever. But you have to do the work. You have to start doing the restorative practice like meditating. The other thing I'll add to that, let's go back to that question. We had a shiny object way long time ago. Here we are, is journaling. My oldest son, he journals, and he was the inspiration for me to journal. I've been told, you know, everyone, like people, oh, you should journal. You know, like I'm not gonna journal, like diary. I kind of like I had my own thought or what I thought journaling was. I didn't understand the power of it. Well, how I leverage journaling is I meditate, I make my coffee, right? I drink decaf now. I can't drink caffeinated coffee because this energy is like too much, right? So I have to refrain from the caffeine now. And I used to drink Monster energy drinks like crazy. That's okay. Hopefully my heart is back to normal, right? So, but he was this inspiration. Like he was my inspiration. It's like he's 20 years old, or 19 or 18 at the time. It's like,
what drove him to journaling?
I think he saw a lot of what I went through, and I think he's an old soul, right? And he just started maybe someone told him, and he started doing it. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to journal, it's not, hey diary, this happened. Like, okay, let me get down to let's get down to business here. Well, what's the business? What's my intent? What's my declarations? So I wrote first I write down my declarations. I look at my declarations today, every day, right? I declare myself to be authentic, to be integral, right? To be inspiration, to be of service, right? And to be love. And love is like, okay, now I can be compassionate, right? Not empathetic, right? I don't need to be an empath and take all your shame on. I just need to be compassionate and understanding of your story and listen, right? That's what a peer does. So there's a lot of internal work, but what I'm saying in this idea of like coming back for another veteran, that community around that. It's like, you don't have to be Gandhi or Jesus or Buddha and be on the top of the peak, right? You just need to be somewhere. You need to have at least, I say, like punched above the smog, right? And realize, be more aware that I'm not free, and then be on that journey of seeking for your true sovereignty. That's what you need to be doing. That's going to be your climb. Because if I think that everything's okay, guess what? I'm here. I'm plateauing, right? Matter of fact, I'm not only plateauing, but I'm going further, probably maybe further away from my true calling or my purpose. And I'm surely not doing it from the heart, right? The center of all this, I'm doing this from the heart. And the trials and tribulations that go along with that are freaking difficult. But I can't I can't go to the big trials until I can solve the little ones, until I can manage my anger in traffic. Right? And now it's like, it's funny. It's like, I mean, people would cut me off all the time, right? And I would just like, mother ever, right? No one ever cuts me off anymore. Maybe I was the asshole. Maybe I was the guy that was being the asshole. Right? And I was drawing in that from other people. Again, right? I needed to be hypervigilant. I needed to have a reason to hit my cortisol. So I'm creating a movie, a reality, right? That's based on my feeling, because I'm thinking, right? Feeling and thinking, and now it's becoming what I think is my reality.
Circling this all back around, as we wrap up, any last pieces of advice you want to throw out to veterans, first responders?
Well, I think we said it. It's like, listen, love, and understand. And
I would add to when you said it, and I think I want to make sure it gets reiterated. There's one thing to listen. There's another thing to being compassionate, but don't think that your purpose has to be to solve their problem.
No.
Don't put the work on your shoulders of, man, if I listen, now I got to commit to solving their problem.
Well, because what am I doing when I do that? I'm actually transacting. Oh, I got you. I'm going to, like, this is what you do this, you do this. Like, no. Because I want them to come, like, because it worked for me, right?
Yeah.
It worked for me. So what I want you to say is come back, like, give me validation, right? Because I can't be complete with my own story. I'm going to give you the temporary advice, right, that worked for me, and then what am I doing? I'm setting myself up for potential resentment, abandonment, and them, right? Like, so that's why we don't give advice. It's like, and I didn't know that. I mean, I'm sure I've given plenty of advice out. I'm really like, I'm cautious, and I say, listen, I'm not here to give you advice. I'm here to point you back to you.
Oh, we're phenomenal at telling other people how to square themselves away.
Yeah. Why? I don't want to because I don't want to look at my own crap. I don't. Right. And that's the integral part, right? The integral is not like, listen, until I'm going to say a couple of things here that I think are important. I'm going to give you advice, right? if I'm not first honest with myself, if I'm not honest, really honest with myself, then I really can't be honest with anyone else. Because I will, again, control, manipulate, dominate to make influence or other people to justify that position, right? So I have to be honest with myself, right? And this journey starts, it's all, within, right? And I have to stop being a victim to my service. The other thing is the idea of love, right? In order for me to not transact with love, to give, right? Is that I have to unconditionally love myself for everything that I am and everything that I went through. No more resentment. I think the idea of Jesus saying, well, you just, you have to forgive. Like, okay, like I would need to take that a step further. No, it all happened for me. Everyone was playing their part. Everyone was just playing their part for me to get where I am now. Like, do you see the difference in that? I'm not a victim to my past story. I absolutely love everything, right? And accept everything that I had to get through to be where I am now. And that's being more complete, right? That's not like Dad, Mom, thank you. Thank you. You just didn't know. It's fine.
See, you did have the last couple pieces of, or nuggets of advice.
So yeah, well, I just want to thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for first responders. And I think veterans, like, thank you, right? You have and I'm not stroking your ego. You don't need to be stroked. I know that, but you have a very powerful way of opening doors. And I say doors are portals for people to really, in the question things is, like it caught me off guard. I was like, I'm asking you, you're going to tell me, right? But no, it's like, I had to really go deep on that. And really this idea of going back to this original question. If I were to, let me read it again. Let's finish with the question. When was a time you faced adversity and you wanted to quit something, right? And what made you push through, right? And I think there was plenty of times when I was a kid that I wanted to quit, but it goes back to the resiliency that I was taught to survive. And I think, again, it starts young, right? Let's realize this adversity starts young. And we can use that as a superpower. And instead of controlling and dominating and manipulating the world around us, we can start empowering people. We can start really empowering people. We can give hand ups, right? Let's leverage that resiliency that we have for the betterment, right, of our veterans. And I think the opportunity for us to, as warriors, right, let's create a warrior culture around healing, right? And Project Restore Hope is maybe one of hopefully many entities that can do this, right, in this capacity. But I'm appreciative of this adversity, right, that I had to face young. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. Right. And really there's nothing to forgive.
I appreciate your time. I wish you all the best going forward.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.